Bonjour tout le monde, bienvenue à la deuxième journée de la conférence Bioinnovation. Je suis Leila Belhammer, coordinatrice de l'entrepreneuriat scientifique du Québec et je suis ravie de tous vous accueillir aujourd'hui et d'être ici avec Ghislaine qui est toujours en direct de New York. C'est à toi Ghislaine. Ok. Alors, je sais que Ghislaine a été très impressionnée par tous les panels et tout ce qu'on a pu écouter hier. C'était tellement intéressant de savoir comment la bioéconomie et la biorévolution est en train de commencer. Elle est déjà à nos portes. Et je voulais aussi vous dire que la deuxième journée de cette bioconférence est vraiment incroyable puisqu'on va avoir plusieurs panels. On va avoir des sessions spéciales pour les startups et des sessions également pour toutes les personnes qui recherchent un travail dans la bioéconomie en ce moment. Alors, en attendant, Ghislaine qui nous revient dans quelques instants, je voulais juste vous dire également, Ghislaine qui est revenue, donc Ghislaine, hi.
Hi, Leila, how are you?
Hello. I'm doing well. How about you?
Fine.
How is the weather?
Yeah, I'm excited for the second day, Leila, and to join you. So, for those who were not here yesterday, I'm Ghislaine Silveira, and I'm the Director of Global and International Partnerships at District 3. And I also run the New York City Hub from where I talk at this moment, and I join my colleague Leila. So from once in a while, you will hear the sirens of the ambulances. So excuse me for that. New York City. I also would like to welcome everyone, and we are super happy to have you for the second day of the Bioinnovation Conference. Yesterday was awesome, and not only because I joined my colleague Leila, but also we had brilliant minds from across Canada, but furthermore, all over the world.
Oui, effectivement, Ghislaine, c'est ce que j'étais en train de dire à l'instant et c'était une extraordinaire journée. J'étais tellement inspirée de rencontrer autant de personnes partageant les mêmes idées, des scientifiques en bio et en STEM, des fondateurs et des fondatrices de startups de partout dans le monde. Donc, c'était vraiment incroyable. Et on voulait aussi souligner ce qu'a dit Bettina Hamelin de Ontario Genomics et aussi Rémi Quérian, notre scientifique en chef du Québec. En fait, on a tous les ingrédients pour réussir au Canada si nous pouvons favoriser une communauté bio-cohésive qui soutient l'entrepreneuriat scientifique. Nous pourrons bâtir cette bioéconomie tous ensemble et bâtir sincèrement un monde meilleur.
I completely agree with Bettina Hamelin and also Rémi Quérian. So we have all the ingredients for success in Canada, and we need to foster this cohesive bio community to support scientific entrepreneurship, and then we will be able to build the bioeconomy and a better world. And the networking session yesterday, beyond the discussions, of course, was very powerful for this. We had around 200 participants in the networking session, and I met very interesting people yesterday.
Oui, comme Ghislaine est en train de le dire, il y avait 200 personnes hier à la session de networking. C'était super intéressant. On a fait vraiment des très, très belles rencontres. Alors, aujourd'hui, ce sera encore le cas. À 15h, on va faire ces 3 minutes de speed dating. Donc, vous pouvez aussi augmenter le temps si vous le souhaitez. Et tout de suite, pour commencer à établir ces belles connexions multidisciplinaires, je vous invite, s'il vous plaît, à indiquer votre nom, votre parcours, d'où vous venez et ce que vous faites dans le chat juste ici.
Yeah. So, wait no longer, put your name in the chat, where you come from, your background, what brought you to this conference, and we will start building this powerful and very necessary connections to build the community. We, beyond the chat, we will reunite at 3 p.m. for the next working, which will be like yesterday, a very, very powerful moment. So, let's start with the agenda for the second day, Leila. So let's
Yeah. C'est parti.
So food, it will be a big theme today. So just a small teaser. So have you tried just egg? So if you haven't, pay attention. It's 100% plant-based, it has zero cholesterol and less saturated fat than the ordinary common options, but with the similar amount of protein. Its ingredients require less land, less water, and also less carbon emissions to make. So it's a real powerful innovation, and we will hear about this and much more today.
C'est incroyable. Et Ghislaine, j'ai aussi entendu dire qu'ils sont capables de faire des œufs brouillés. C'est un truc de fou. Alors, c'est les débuts pour Mosamid. C'est une spin-off du laboratoire du docteur Microbes de l'université de Maastricht. C'est le tout premier hamburger cultivé sur tissu au monde. Truc de fou. Donc, imaginez, il développe l'ingénierie tissulaire et en technologie qui permet la production de masse de viande de culture qui est abordable et sans cruauté animale.
Wow. So, incredible, and we will hear about this and much more in the session now that we named The Future of Food for Human and Planetary Health. Recent reports predicted that by 2035, many popular global dishes, they will have a tasty, economical, and sustainable alternative. We will learn more about this in the following bio talk, where I'm pleased to welcome innovators from the West Coast that will join us for the discussion. So we will have Bill Gruel, CEO, Protein Industries Canada. We will have Kate Kruger, Cultivated Protein Expert, and Xprize Feed the Next Billion representative. And finally, Nate Crosser, Entrepreneur in Residence, Blue Horizon.
Bienvenue à vous trois. Alors, Nate's Crosser goal is to accelerate biotechnology innovation and commercialization in alternative proteins. In his current role at Blue Horizon, the world-leading alternative protein venture capital, private equity, and asset management company, he supports transformative food companies.
Joining Nate, we have Kate, specialized in synthetic biology, alternative proteins, and high-tech food. In her role at Xprize, she focuses on uniting the world around 21st century biotechnology and food innovation. And finally, joining them, I'm pleased to introduce as well Bill Gruel, whose career has focused on agriculture and innovation. In his current role, he is spearheading Canada's efforts in developing the protein supercluster through various government programs, resources, and alternatives.
Super, Ghislaine, on a vraiment hâte d'écouter ce panel. And we are thrilled to have with us Philippe Thompson, our venture associate from District 3 Healthcare Stream, to moderate this session. In his previous life, Phil built the food tech startup. So take it away, Phil. C'est à toi.
All right. Thank you, Ghislaine, and merci, Leila. It's great to have you all here discuss a truly fascinating subject. As our global population continues to grow, with the impacts of climate change and the consequences of an expanding environmental footprint on land and water, there's no doubt we must focus our attention urgently to the future of food. And I can't think of a better way to fill my lunch hour discussing with our panelists, Nate, Kate, and Bill. Now, before starting with my questions, I'd like to invite the audience members to post their questions in the chat. We'll have someone monitor it, and we'll try to field some of your questions as best as we can during the session. So let me start with Nate. So I understand you're an entrepreneur in residence at the Blue Horizon, a venture cap fund to support the movement towards a more sustainable food system through innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. So let me ask you, when you meet the food tech startup in this space, what comes first? Do you prefer seeing the pitch deck or tasting a food sample?
Yeah. So, I personally and Blue Horizon are in this for the impact of transforming the food system. And we get that impact through supporting entrepreneurs who create products that can compete on the basis of taste and price with conventional animal products. And that's not something that you really stumble into. We've had products like tofu and tempeh, which are great for a small subset of the population, but it wasn't until more recently that we developed, plant-based meat alternatives that could appeal to the masses. All that to say, we're really focused on the kind of technology components that make that possible. And so we're investing, at least my team at Blue Horizon is investing really, really early stage, sometimes as early as person with an idea or something coming right out of a lab. So we don't really expect there to be products or samples available, especially if you're, in cultivated meat, or we, work with a lot of B2B companies that aren't necessarily even selling a consumer good. Another reason why pitch deck is more important is that V1.0 of products doesn't really matter all that much, because we're iterating on new versions pretty much multiple times a year. If you look at if some people might remember tasting some of the really early Beyond Meat products that honestly were not very good, but now they're incredible and they're getting better, once or twice a year. So we're really looking more about, what's the team, what's the underpinning technology, is there any evidence of traction or market pull that whatever they're doing is going to solve an issue in the industry or find a way to appeal to a new subset of customers. That's kind of more what we're looking for.
Okay, great to know that you're interested in meeting early stage companies even before they may have samples for you to taste. I have another question for you. According to a study from the Boston Consulting Group and Blue Horizon, your investment company, by 2035, every 10th portion of protein consumed is very likely to be alternative. Can you explain to us what alternative protein means? For instance, which primary sources can lead to alternative proteins?
Yeah, as I kind of mentioned, we think of alternative proteins as true alternatives to meat, eggs, and dairy, so conventional animal agriculture products that can compete in terms of function, nutrition, mass appeal. So we're not really talking insects or tofu, though there will certainly be important parts of, in some parts of the world with some consumers. When we're talking about those projections, it was specifically plant-based, animal cell-based, and fermentation. So just, I know Bill and Kate could talk about the first two much more intelligently than I can, but plant-based is just, we can make meat, eggs, and dairy from plants at the molecular level. All of the same things exist in both kingdoms, and we just need to figure out a technical solution there. Animal cell-based, Kate will talk more about that, but we can just take the cells directly from the animal or the mammary gland cells in the case of milk, and we can use that to produce the actual proteins or fats, whatever we want. And then kind of the third area that I'm probably most well positioned to talk about for this panel is fermentation. So that's the use of microbes, mycelium, so things like bacteria, yeast, to produce very specific functional ingredients, or to modulate plant proteins, or to create biomass for products. But it's really all about recapitulating the taste and price of animal-based products as alternative proteins.
Wow, that all sounds very futuristic and straight out of science fiction. But my understanding is that the food revolution is already happening. So Kate, being a cultivated protein expert for the Xprize, you're up to date on the latest food technology developments. Can you tell us more about cultivated meat? And are we already eating it, and where?
Yeah, definitely. We are not already eating it. Cultivated meat is still very novel and very hard to make. There have been very limited tastings here and there. Is my tech breaking up?
A little bit. We're having a little trouble with the connection.
Anyway, I'm going to continue. Hopefully it's all good. Oh gosh.
So
I'm gonna turn my camera. Is that better?
Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. So go ahead. You were telling us about.
Okay, great. So yeah, definitely. So we go ahead.
All right. So
yeah, so I was telling you all about cultivated meat. So cultivated meat Oh God.
Yeah, we're still we're still breaking up a little bit. So you know what? I'll come back to you, Kate. Let me turn it over to Bill and ask you this: as the CEO of Protein Industry Canada, you're leading the plant-based protein revolution in Canada. For those that are unfamiliar with that organization, can you tell us more about Protein Industries Canada and why the Canadian government chose proteins to be one of the 5 innovation superclusters?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me on. This is really an exciting conversation. So Protein Industries Canada, we're what's called an innovation supercluster. And you know, that's a big word, but at the end of the day, really what we're driving at, as we're an economic development agency for Canada, and I'll come back to the beautiful space that we operate in, which is when economic development coincides with, you know, food security and environmental health and human health safety. But, you know, the backdrop to what we're doing here at Protein Industries Canada is really to grow the value-added processing sector in Western Canada. We produce on average 60 million metric tons of crop production on an annual basis. And so for people who are not familiar with agriculture, that's a lot of crop production, the vast majority of which we export as whole seed to other jurisdictions around the world that are turning those crops into food products and ingredients. Our goal is to process more of that at home so we can supply ingredients and food products to the world. You know, the Boston Consulting Group study that you mentioned, or we've recently done some work with Ernst & Young, we know that the market's going to be measured in the hundreds of billions of dollars by 2035. And we've got an opportunity to capture a significant portion of that in Canada and help solve some of the issues related to climate change and redesigning of food systems and addressing human health concerns. So why did Canada choose plant-based protein as one of the 5 innovation superclusters? You know, agriculture and food is the largest employer already in Canada. It is the 2nd largest contributor to GDP. Canada is one of the 5 global jurisdictions as the net exporter of food, and we've got billions of dollars of value locked up inside of the crops that we produce on an annual basis. So it's a very exciting time, and I come back to the intersection between economic development growth for the country and being able to really address some of the global challenges in our food system.
That's great. When you think of Canada, you always think of it being the food basket of the world, mm-hmm. and it's great to realize that Canada can also be the future food basket of the world. So that's amazing. I'm going to check back in with Kate and see if we have a better connection and revert back to our question with Kate. Kate, are you with us? No. Okay, so let me go back to you, Nate. You mentioned the 3rd source of alternative proteins based on microorganisms or fermentation based. Can you tell us more about that? Why is it revolutionary? And can you give us a couple of examples?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll first talk about kind of the examples and the types, and then I think why I think this is going to be so revolutionary. And you know, keep in mind, this is just this categorization system was developed based on the first 50 or so companies in the space that are operating as fermentation alternative protein companies, but certainly there'll be many more, and categorizations will shift. But we think of fermentation as 3 categories. There's traditional fermentation, biomass fermentation, and precision fermentation. Traditional fermentation is just leveraging the indigenous knowledge of using microbes to bioprocess different plant or even meat ingredients. So things like cheese is a traditionally fermented food, many kinds of cheese, kimchi, leavened bread, all that kind of stuff is traditionally fermented. Now, there's a handful of companies that are taking that type of approach to bioprocessing meat. So one great example here is Microtechnology, which is a Colorado-based company that uses shiitake mushroom mycelium. So not even a microbe or a bacteria, but mushroom mycelium to ferment in solid state rice and pea. And so you can get kind of like a a really nice bioprocessed beef product analog that has high protein, because fungi consume the carbohydrates, convert them to protein. Another example that's in the Blue Horizon portfolio was New Roots. So basically, swap out the dairy cream for nut cream, and you can ferment it into cheese. So that's traditional fermentation. It doesn't sound super technical, but it's really exciting, and maybe one of my favorite areas in the entire alt protein industry. The second area is biomass. So that's the use of the microbe or the mycelium as the main ingredient or the biomass or the protein source in a product. The classic example here is corn, which is a UK-based brand that uses a filamentous fungi strain to create a meat analog. There are other companies in the space like Wild Earth that makes pet food. Atlas Food Co., which uses mushroom mycelium to create whole cut muscle analogs like bacon. Lots of really exciting work there. There are companies using microalgae as well, like Algama. The third area is precision fermentation, which is where we have most of our investments, but I don't necessarily think it's any better than the other two categories. But this is the use of microbes. Most often, it's going to be a yeast or a bacteria to produce a very specific functional ingredient that we then purify out of the cell. So this is like how we've been using it in the pharma sector for a number of years, like how we created insulin from yeast instead of pig pancreases. So classic example there would be Impossible Foods derives the heme that gives their product the bloody taste. They pull that they pull that out of a yeast. There's Clara Foods, which creates real egg proteins via fermentation. Geltor, real collagen proteins via fermentation. Really, you can create anything that you can dream up through precision fermentation. So there's a lot of activity in this space as well. Why it's revolutionary? Three main areas, probably human health, animal, planetary health, and economic efficiency. Just briefly on those, there's some preliminary evidence, even though this is a relatively new area, that fermentation dried products are really healthy. Those traditional products have a health glow for a reason, but even some of the newer products like biomass are shown to have really high PDCAS scores. I know Exeter last year did a study that showed that the corn mycoprotein, so the fungi protein that corn uses, was more effective at building muscle than was dairy milk proteins. So a lot of interesting human health implications there, especially when it comes to addressing malnutrition. Animal and planetary health, fermentation allows us to decouple protein production both from animal agriculture and land use. So really great for ensuring biodiversity continuing or keeping supply chain secure, removing animals and all the issues associated with that. And then just thirdly is economic efficiency. We can convert really cheap feedstocks into high quality protein in formats that people want to eat without having to funnel it through an animal, which is thermodynamically a disaster. So, we can use CO2, methane, sunlight, wood pulp, corn stalks, corn sugar, lots of different things that we can basically turn to things that we want to eat.
Fantastic. Thermodynamically disastrous. I'm going to keep that one. And I've when I was working on my own food tech startup, mycotechnology was front and center, but it's unbelievable how vast and wide and expansive it is. So it's really fantastic. Thank you for that. Let me check in with Kate. Do we have any luck with Kate? All right. Well,
Hello.
So
Hopefully you can hear me now.
All right. Okay. Yes, we can. So let me get quickly to your question, Kate. Hopefully we can fit you in. So my understanding is you're a cultivated protein expert for the Xprize, and you are up to date on the latest technology developments. So can you tell us more about cultivated meat and what it is and is it as delicious as my steak?
So that's a great question. So first of all, I'm going to say I have not tried cultivated meat yet, so I cannot personally comment. That's, I think, one of the main misconceptions about cultivated meat is its availability. So in general, it's very hard to find cultivated meat. Just Foods was the first company to really do any kind of a large scale public release, extremely cutting edge. So Xprize is looking to do the first development of what's called a structured meat product. So something that includes a full cut of chicken or a full fillet of fish. The goal is to get a product that not only has animal muscle cells, but also that has a bite or a mouthfeel like a meat product. So cultured meat involves taking animal cells directly from an animal, as Nate mentioned, growing those cells in cell growth medium, growing those cells in such sufficient quantities that you can incorporate them directly into a food product. These days, that mostly looks like a chicken nugget, quality plant proteins. But as we move into the future, we're going to be seeing products likely that have a higher cell count, that tend to have less plant protein binder, and that do have more of this bite or mouth feel. So Xprize is this 4-year, $15 million challenge that really helps people get towards that goal because it is so hard to create a product that has that bite like a steak or like a chicken cut. So we're very excited about pushing that innovation forward.
Really neat. And there'll be a clip just at the end of this segment on more about the Xprize on food. So fantastic. Kate, while I have you, I'm gonna give you I'm gonna pose you another question. So what is stopping us currently from having a 100% meat free from farm animals? Like what are the barriers? And can you mention like 2 or 3 off the top of your head?
Sure, definitely. So when we're talking about products that are derived from animal cells, one of the biggest challenges is figuring out how to feed them in a way that's cost effective. It's easy to forget how complicated food products are.
Oh, Kate, are you still with us? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm still with you. So feeding cells outside of an animal's body is extremely hard. So that's the big challenge we're dealing with currently in the cell-based meat industry, is figuring out how to make some of the most complex, expensive parts of cell food, essentially, that normally an animal's body would make. So that's the biggest challenge. And then thinking about how you scale up that kind of process, very challenging to think about turning what is currently a very medical, extremely high cost process into something that is food grade and food priced is a really big and exciting challenge.
Really, really good. I'm gonna go to Bill now, and Bill on talking about the future of Canada's alternative proteins. So what else do you think we can do to advance innovation in this space in Canada? What is missing, and what do we need to move forward?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. And so, maybe I'll start with the investment thesis of Protein Industries Canada. So just so people are aware, we're investing $150 million, co-investing with other private sector companies. So we've got a project portfolio of $329 million today of active projects looking at the innovation space, and everything from plant breeding. How can we use advanced breeding technologies, genomic research to drive outcomes at the other end of the value chain? So looking at things like protein content, protein concentration, amino acid balance, functionality. How can we use advanced breeding technologies to drive that? We're also looking at advanced processing technologies. How can we improve processing efficiency, and how can we drive things that are holding back the growth of the alternative protein sector, like taste, texture, and price through innovation. So, you know, a couple things. I think more investment in innovation. This is going to be a sector driven and underpinned by innovative new technologies. You know, Kate was describing some of the issues and challenges with scaling up of cellular meat. The reality is we need to think about that just for plant-based protein as well. How do we scale up the processing technologies? How do we innovate on the development of new food products that are not only mimicking meat, but also creating brand new food product categories? From an innovation perspective, maybe close to the consumer side of the equation, I would say three things that we really need to focus on in Canada's plant-based food market. That's taste, texture, and price. Every time I talk to anyone as a consumer packaged goods company, those are the three big concerns or issues or innovation challenges that they need to solve as we work to incorporate more plant-based ingredients into their food product line. So taste for us, that is, you know, using yellow peas that we produce at scale in Western Canada. How do we ensure that we're removing that beany flavor? We need a good neutral flavored protein, so there's an innovation challenge for us. I think the texture side, you know, shearing, extrusion technologies, the development of different textures that can be applied in food products, and finally price. We, you know, in order for this to be widely accepted across the globe, we really need to drive to price parity with meat products that are available today. That's all about scaling. That's all about innovation. That's all about technology. So, Philippe, I would say it's those four things. One is a value chain approach. How do we think about everything from plant breeding to consumer packaged goods and creating linkages across that value chain, and then really focusing innovation on taste, texture, and price.
Thank you. Yeah, consumer acceptability is huge, and I'm just going to follow up, maybe with you, Nate, about consumer acceptability. You know, obviously the trends of yesterday were people eating organic certified foods and really going back to nature. From an investor standpoint, what do you feel consumers will think about meat being grown in a laboratory or a fermenter?
Yeah, at a high level, the early consumer surveys are really promising. I know some surveys on cultivated meat range anywhere from 30 to 70% of people have expressed a high interest in purchasing cultivated meat products. And maybe Kate can talk more about cultivated meat specifically, but on the fermentation side, there's that kind of, you know, these products they're not really, for the most part, on the mainstream market yet. So we have to look to what is on the market, and that would be products like corn, which have sold really well, so well, in fact, that Mondi Nissin, which is the company that owns corn, is planning a $1 billion IPO, which is the first $1 billion IPO of a company from the Philippines. So that brand's been doing really well. But you can look to other cultured foods that are having a real moment. I mean, you go to your Whole Foods and you'll see that the fermented food section is continuing to grow. There's now 15 types of kimchi you can buy. So yeah, you know, there's also the growing interest in mushrooms. So you can easily tie fermentation to the use of fungi, which there's always consumer interest on. And then I guess you could look to the really early products that are on the market. So Impossible Foods, somewhat a product of fermentation, is maybe the best plant-based meat on the market. Mycotech's product I've tried is almost nearly as good, if not as good. Perfect Day, which uses precision fermentation to produce dairy casein, now has products on the market in the US that taste really exceptional. So, you know, all indications show that they're going to be able to compete on taste and later price. So should have mainstream appeal.
Great. I've got a question from the audience, and I'm going to put this to Bill. We've got a question from Benjamin. Mammalian cell culture is still relatively labor and resource intensive. how do you envision this improving, or can we move away from mammalian cell culture altogether?
Philippe, are you sure you wanted to put that to me, or did you want to put that to Kate?
We can ask Kate if she's there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from my perspective, it's really all about an underpinning of innovation and scale. And so for me, it's about driving into scaling of technologies. And so we see this in plant-based food production from the crops that we produce in Western Canada. It's all about how do we drive scale, and that has to come from number one, consumer acceptance, because the investments in innovation won't be there without consumer acceptance. There's a regulatory challenge here in Canada. We need to think about the regulatory environment that enables some of this technology, and if we're going to get mired in regulation on some of these products, the investment from the private sector won't flow. And third is the investment in innovation. I think that the combination of consumer acceptance, a favorable regulatory environment, and investment in innovation will drive us there.
Okay, Kate, do you have anything to add? And I apologize for mixing up my questions. Oh,
sure,
are you there, Kate?
No worries. I couldn't agree more with Bill. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, tech, it's hard. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Bill. Scaling is really hard. I think scaling is going to be one of the biggest challenges out there. Getting that price parity with current available options is extremely challenging. Putting that much tech in our food is not something we usually do. So I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge for the field, a really exciting one, but a really large challenge. To speak a little bit to the consumer acceptance side of things that came up earlier, people do often wonder how these products will be perceived, or whether there will be issues with people being interested in eating these products, especially when it comes to cultivated meat or cell-cultured meat or lab-grown meat, as it's called. The names can sound a little pejorative depending on what you're calling the product. And it's a really good point. These products are not yet on the market, so it's a little bit anyone's guess. But I like to think of it a little bit like the Herman Miller Aeron chair, right? Everyone said they hated it. They said they didn't like it. They were really disturbed by the idea of it. And now it's the most popular chair out there. So, you know, I think it's really hard to predict this sort of thing, even with consumer acceptance studies and tests. So I think time will tell.
Yeah, I never thought of comparing food to furniture, but I guess, you know, with consumers, anything is possible.
Bill, can I just tack on a small point there?
Absolutely.
Just a word of optimism about cultivated meat scale up. I just want to point out that the first kind of commercial endeavor, first company formed working on that was in 2015, and in the 5 to 6 years, there are now probably about 70 or 80 companies working on this. And most notably, in the last 2 years, we've seen a huge surge of companies that are focused upstream in the value chain. So B2B companies, like they're working on cell lines or media optimization, bioprocess design, scaffolding. Like, having those vertical entrants or those B2B players will do a lot to help bring down the price. Now, not all the companies have to vertically integrate. So we've already seen tremendous drops in the price of cultivated meat production, even to the point where now, Just is able to sell some cultivated meat nuggets for $20 in Singapore. So I would imagine it's going to come faster than people think. Maybe not a steak, but the patties and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit as the cultivated meat expert. So yes. I think it's really exciting. Yeah, can't help myself. I think Nate's point is great to the point of B2B technologies. I think those are going to accelerate innovation quite a bit. Makes a lot of sense, allows companies to play towards their strengths. One challenge we do hit is certain biological limits under current tech. So we are going to be seeing, I think, in some ways, certain challenges that are very, very hard for companies to make. Certain serum-free growth media, for instance, some of those tech considerations as they scale are very, very hard to meet. And we have seen some really big drops, especially where they're possible when it comes to pricing. I do think the devil's going to be in the details as things go forward, and I'm really optimistic about seeing those tech innovations happen. I do think it's important to recognize just how much talent and how much enthusiasm and effort it's going to take to get us over those hurdles.
Yeah, it's going to require, I'm sure, a lot of innovation and a lot of creativity in terms of thinking of new ways to solve these problems. We have a question from Bruno, and he wants to ask the panelists, and I'm not sure whether I should direct this to Nate or Kate, but I'll ask for one of you or both of you to volunteer. So what do you think about the use of genetic engineering for optimization of food products? Does that apply?
I'll start with
I'll
that
just briefly. Oh yeah, please go ahead,
and
Kate.
then I'd love to hear your thoughts, Nate. I'm all for it. I think it's great. Yeah, my apologies. Tech is hard. I'm all for it. I think genetic modification is a wonderful thing that can help the space a lot. Certain countries, of course, have some regulations around the use of genetic modification, particularly in Europe. But that said, genetic modification has been well proven in other food products, such as corn and such, that the great thing is that tech is well established, it's safe, it's usable, and the FDA and other agencies know how to work with it in terms of regulation. So, of course, cell-based meat will require its own type of regulation, but not all things are going to be as new as people might think. So I'm really bullish about the idea of genetic modification for cell-cultured meat.
And Nate, yeah, anything to add there?
I would agree. From personally, I'm excited about the use of genetic modification, whether it's a transgenic microbe or plant, or just the use of CRISPR to optimize those processes a little bit. I would say that probably most companies broadly across the alternative protein ecosystem are not using GMO, just because the current regulatory environment in certain key markets makes it difficult. Obviously, there are products that might inherently rely on that, so some of the precision fermentation, but a lot can be done just through traditional breeding practices or use of mechanical or chemical processes. So not as much of this is probably GMO as people might think if they're new to the space. But yeah, certainly can optimize those processes with it.
Yeah, Bill, can I comment on this?
Yes, please do.
I'm so encouraged to hear my panelists speak in favor of this, because it's not been the agriculture industry's experience to have people speaking positively about genetically modified technology or CRISPR or gene editing technology. And I am just so excited about the opportunity that it brings in a safe and effective format. The ability for gene editing technology with single base pair substitutions, being able to upregulate and downregulate genes, addressing anti-nutritional factors, production efficiency, protein content, like the opportunity for us to be truly sustainable in terms of our global food supply rests largely with this technology. It is so critical that we advance this technology, because I truly believe it will underpin the future of food.
Wow. So I think Bruno got his great answers there. I hope he's working on a genetic engineering project. Bill, I have a question, because obviously there are many farmers across Canada and worldwide. Do they see where the science is going as a threat, and how do you see us filling the gap for them? Will, let's say, the Canadian government be encouraging farmers to look to produce some of these food and new protein sources instead of the traditional dairy farm and ranches?
Yeah, I think so first off, Canada has some of the most innovative, technology savvy farmers in the world. High rate of adoption for technology, whether that's sustainable farming practices for the sequestration of carbon, the reduction of crop inputs, the safe use of fertilizers and pesticide products, and not to mention production efficiency in the livestock sector. So highly, highly innovative farmers. And I would say in addition to that, farmers in Canada are highly responsive to market changes. And so really adapting new technology and innovation has been the story and the success of production agriculture for the last century in this country. And production continues to increase, efficiency continues to increase. And so that underpins the success of production agriculture in Canada, full stop. Now, the question around the evolution of what is produced on farm, I think the reality is, as fast as we're going to see markets change at the consumer level, Canada, because we produce such a large amount of agricultural production, both livestock and crops, we will be able to satisfy those market changes with incremental changes over time. I don't foresee wholesale change happening in production agriculture as the rate of plant-based foods increases or the rate of cellular meat increases. The reality is, on a global basis, meat consumption is projected to rise. Traditional meat production is projected to rise still out to 2050. And so, the reality is Canadian farmers will adapt, but I don't foresee issues and challenges in production agriculture just because of global population expansion and the need for more food. So I think this will be an issue that is addressed and changed over decades and generations, and our farmers will adapt.
Fantastic. And I know I acknowledge there are many farmers out there that are truly on the cusp of technology. Anecdotally, my wife's grandfather helped electrify the first dairy farm in Quebec with Hydro-Quebec many, many years ago. So that just goes to show how far we've come. I've got a question here, and I'm just checking the time at the same time, and we got plenty of time, so keep those questions coming. How can, so here it is, how can entrepreneurs innovating on plant-based proteins work and get in touch with Protein Industry Canada? Can you comment on programs, funding opportunities? What's the, can they come in through the front door? How do they access you?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we are a member-based organization. We've got 275 members from across Canada and around the world. I think what's interesting about our membership base is that we really service the entire value chain. So depending on what food innovators are interested in, if they're interested in connections with, maybe it's a plant breeding company because they want some specific trait in a crop that they're processing. If they're interested in conversations with ingredient manufacturers that can supply novel and new food ingredients for consideration in the use of consumer packaged goods companies, or if they're an ingredient manufacturer that's looking to make connections on either side of that value chain, we can foster those relationships. So I would encourage anyone out there who's interested in a conversation with Protein Industries Canada to visit our website. If you just Google Protein Industries Canada, you'll find us. We're happy to talk to anybody. We're in active conversation right now with the Government of Canada about a recapitalization of funding. So we're hoping to be investing hundreds of millions of dollars into the growth of Canada's plant-based foods industry over the next number of years.
Wow, what an opportunity. So I encourage anyone listening to go after it. In the same vein, Nate, there are people in the audience that are curious about Blue Horizon, and does it invest all over the world, or is it strictly in one or two jurisdictions?
Yeah, we have a very broad mandate. The only place that it's narrow is that we're focused on alternative proteins. So sometimes we'll go a little bit outside of that in ag tech or food tech. We can invest anywhere in the world. We have a global mandate at any level of the alt protein value chain and at any stage of a company. So it's a very broad mandate. And if anyone wants to get a hold of me, I think the best way to do that is LinkedIn. Just send me a message. But if you want to learn more about Blue Horizon, bluehorizon.com is our website.
Easy enough. Excellent. So we've, I think it's official. We've lost Kate, but I've got a couple more questions here. This one's going back.
I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Kate, you're back. Okay. So again, I'm not sure whether Kate or Nate are Okay, excellent. The question here is related to microalgae. So why is it that microalgae-based fermentation for proteins is not progressing? Is there scope in Canada for this feedstock?
So I do think it's important to clarify. I think there's a lot of confusion around the topic of microalgae and microflora. Microalgae and microflora are two very different things. Microalgae is what you often think of as pond scum. It's very interesting. The most common form of it is spirulina. So that's a very healthy food. Often what people talk about when they're talking about precision fermentation applications is microflora. So microflora is essentially oftentimes a type of yeast. So these things are, for instance, called aspergillus or trichoderma. And so those are different types of organisms which can be used to make protein. So it is important to keep that separate in a person's mind.
Can I just tack a little bit onto that?
In my correction.
So I think there's a lot of people who are developing process methods for creating large amounts of microalgae, and it's still kind of in need of a place to put it. So, you know, there are companies developing ways to make that taste good, but it just hasn't made it mainstream yet. There's Trident Algae Innovations has just launched a microalgae burger, for example. So I think more of that's coming, but also there are some companies that have used microalgae as a vehicle for precision fermentation. So Spira is a company that has developed a blue dye. There's a company called Avectis that uses microalgae for precision fermentation. So we might start to see a little bit more overlap and use that as a production vehicle.
Okay, excellent. I think we have time for one
and
more.
My correction on that point.
Go ahead.
I'd like to say I misidentified. My apologies. I misidentified aspergillus as a yeast. It is not a yeast. It is microflora. That said, it is. It's used by a number of different protein fermentation companies. So,
all right.
Thanks for that.
No need to apologize. It went right over my head. So, there's another interesting question here, and we're getting into the weeds. What about the other molecules required for proper dietary, like you know, as an example, like specific lipids, cholesterol is required for membranes. Any comments or observations on that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this is one place where cell-based meat can really play favorably. Since cell-based meat involves such custom tuning of so many different cellular processes, it's a wonderful candidate for adding different lipids to a type of cells, changing the health requirements of those cells, etc. So I'm extremely enthusiastic about the potential for cell-based meat to really transform what we can do with foods in the nutrition sector.
Great. Nearly all of that you can either find or express through plants or fermentation as well, I would just add.
Okay.
Yeah,
excellent.
Definitely.
Excellent. So we have 5 minutes left, and I think I've covered most of the questions coming from the audience. I'm just wondering, you know, for the group of you, have we missed anything? Like, are there any other topics that were discussed or touched upon today that we should be aware of or explore more? Are there any open questions still to demystify?
I'll maybe just add one comment that we're still in the early stages of this alternative protein revolution, and it's still, I would say, kind of an all hands on deck moment. So new data from GFI was just released, the Good Food Institute, yesterday, that showed that I think we have 2% market penetration for plant-based meats in US retail. It's growing really rapidly, but we're still really in the early days. Lots of problems to solve along the value chain. So if anyone's thinking about, you know, did I miss the boat? Is it too late to get involved? We're still very, very, very early. I bet global market penetration for plant-based meat and dairy is still probably below 1%. So that's all I'll add.
Okay, excellent.
Agreed. Alt proteins are really having a continuing moment. So it's a great time to get into the space.
Yeah, it really does feel like we're at the cusp. We're at the brink of a brand new generation of food, but also of technologies that will change our world. Bill, any last remarks from you?
Yeah, I would agree, and it's a very exciting time in Canadian agriculture to watch the transformation happen. But you know, in addition to all the exciting things we're talking about from a technology perspective, we've got some really big mountains to move in Canada. And I don't want to end this on a negative note. I think it's actually a positive thing that we've got. We're going to need an influx of capital. We're going to need some regulatory reform. We're going to need a focus on innovation. We're going to need good entrepreneurs. The opportunity for us in Canada, I think we can supply 10% of the global plant-based food market based on the crop production that we have and the innovative producers and companies we have. It's going to move. We're going to have to move some mountains to get there, but it's a really, really exciting time for Canadian agriculture and food. Yeah,
I have to agree, and it's a great message to send out to young scientists and entrepreneurs in this conference. It truly is really motivating and energizing to hear you talk and to be part of the future, the definition of the future. It's fantastic. Excellent. Well, I'm really pleased with how this went today. I'm really thankful for all three of you participating in this. I'm right now looking at the chat, and there's no new questions. So I'm going to wrap up just by again thanking our panelists, and you know, you've given us a lot of food for thought. That was actually in the script. So thank you again, and you know, it's just amazing the thoughts and you've been provoking many thoughts in my mind, and I can only imagine the ideas and the inspiration that the young scientists and the entrepreneurs here in the conference. So thanks again. I'm going to switch gears here and introduce to you the Xprize to feed the next billion competition. So to continue on our agri-food theme and the need to engage future innovators around the crucial challenges of our time, I'm pleased to introduce you one of our co-founders at D3, Sidney Swain Simon, who has spent his career building the future. He is D3's AI Fellow and Xprize Ambassador. He also runs our AI program in genomics, and which enables life science students and recent graduates to understand the science behind AI that apply to genomics. So I'm going to hand it over to Sidney. Take it away.
Thank you. I'm Sidney Swain Simon, AI Fellow at District 3 and an Xprize Ambassador. I'm here to talk to you today about my favorite prize. Since co-founding District 3 over 7 years ago, I have focused my time on driving open innovation, AI for good, and empowering people through education and technology and entrepreneurship. The Xprize became the perfect vehicle to drive these core values. As a community of over 1 million people, the Xprize solves the world's most complex challenges by engaging with people like you, the researchers, industry professionals, and founders. District 3 is proud to be the Eastern Canada Ambassador for the Anna Avatar Xprize and the Montreal Ambassador for the IBM Watson AI Xprize. And now, we are proud to announce today that we will be supporting the Feed the Next Billion competition. Stay tuned to hear more about this $15 million prize from Caroline Colta, Program Lead for the Xprize Foundation Feed the Next Billion competition, who is here to give you more information live from LA.
The UN estimates that by 2050, the world population will increase to 9.7 billion people.
Humans must drastically alter their food production to prevent the catastrophic effects of global warming.
More than 820 million people worldwide go hungry every day.
Innovating in this area will address massive global challenges.
Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Caroline Colta. I am the program lead for Xprize Feed the Next Billion, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. We just heard a great panel talking about the future of alternative proteins, and I love that they're ended on this is a great time for this type of innovation, and I'm here to present to you a great opportunity to be part of this ecosystem trying to solve for alternative proteins. Before we jump in, before I tell you all about Xprize and the competition, just a reminder, if you have any questions, please use the chat or Q&A function to share your questions, and I'll make sure to have time at the end of this presentation to address some of your questions. First, I wanted to give you an introduction about Xprize. You heard a little bit from Sydney about some of the competitions, the ANA Avatar Prize. Xprize is a nonprofit organization. It's a future positive movement working on identifying grand challenges and incentivizing solvers from all over the world to solve for these challenges. Our mission is to inspire and empower problem solvers and democratize innovation and access to innovation to everyone. We were inspired by prizes that were held in the past. The competition model to solve problems isn't new, but we at Xprize take it to the next level. The prize that inspired us was launched in May 1919, and $25,000, a big sum of money at the time, were put forth to anyone, any person who can fly direct, nonstop between New York City and Paris. At the time, there was no such thing as a aviation industry, and this prize was actually won 8 years later after it was put forth to the public by Charles Lindbergh, who was able to make the flight. Lots of people tried and failed, but when he succeeded, an entire industry, the private aviation, commercial aviation industry, was born. So with that inspiration, Xprize launched its very first competition in 1996, the Ansari Xprize, with a very similar motive to privatize space exploration this time. The $10 million Ansari Xprize was won by a team that was able to fly, take a spaceship to space that was privately funded and built, and come back to Earth and then go back again within 2 weeks. This was a whole new innovation in the industry, and it helped create the private space industry that we know today. The winning technology was purchased by Sir Richard Branson, and it started what we know today as Virgin Galactic. Since that prize, with the success of that competition, we've been working on prizes for the past 25 years. We've awarded 15 different prizes, and we've expanded our focus from private space exploration to things like gender equity, exploring our oceans, capturing carbon from the air, and now feeding the next billion. The Xprize Feed the Next Billion competition was launched in December last year, 2020. And its main objective was to solve for issues that we face with conventional meat production today, specifically environmental degradation, food safety and malnutrition, and the inhumane treatment of animals and biodiversity loss. With these targets in front of us, we started thinking, how do we solve for these problems? And alternative protein was an obvious answer. So to win this competition, teams must develop structured chicken or fish alternatives to conventional products that replicate or outperform the products we know today in sensory properties, cookability, versatility, nutrition, and environmental footprint. Any approach to this competition is eligible. If you're working on a plant-based product or a cell-based product, you're welcome to apply and compete. An innovation bonus prize will be awarded to teams working with cell-based products who can achieve and develop a whole animal origin-free growth media at the lowest production cost. So as I said, competitions are open to everyone and teams can compete from all over the world. The image you see on the screen is of a high school students team that competed in the Ocean Discovery Xprize and was able to win some of the prize purse. So really competitions are open to anyone with a great idea, the momentum and the network to get it done. Teams compete in Xprize competitions for multiple reasons. There's a huge focus for Xprize on technology verification and being on the cutting edge with testing and judging to make sure competing teams have the support that they need from the ecosystem, from the science community to move forward with their innovations. Xprize competitions offer an opportunity for teams that might never talk to each other or engage with each other to combine their efforts and compete in a very healthy environment to achieve great things. There's a lot of media exposure that comes with being a team in an Xprize competition. We try and work with teams to offer access to opportunities for fundraising and expanding their networks as well. So when you enter an Xprize competition, you're joining a global movement trying to revolutionize, in this case, food production. If you're listening to this presentation and you think, this is amazing, I want to be involved, but I don't think I can be a team in this competition, we're also looking for partners at this stage. As I mentioned, we launched in 2020, last year, towards the end of the year, so we're still at the beginning of the competition. And right now we're looking at working with partners that can help us with team recruitment, team success, and eventually later down the line, testing, scaling impact, and amplification. Next, on the next couple of slides, I'll talk you through the competition rounds so you are more familiar with what to expect over the next few years if you decide to compete or join us as a partner. This is our timeline. We launched in December and we're in the team registration phase from now until May 31st. This is also the deadline for submitting your paper submission application with your proposed solution to enter into the competition. And then we decide with the judging panel who's impartial to Xprize on the semi-finalists that will work on a physical prototype in July 2021. So once these semi-finalists are selected, they get 12 months to work on a prototype. And then there's another point of testing these prototypes in about a year. And then the 10 teams that perform the best advance to another 15 months of solution development period to submit their final prototype to Xprize and the judging panel in Q4 2023. So that's where we do another round of testing and then advance the top winners and award the prize at that stage. A little bit deeper into the rounds of the competition, just so you get a clearer idea of what we expect. Right now, and very soon on April 16th, we open the technical submission application process to any interested team. In this technical submission, we ask teams to supply information like their team information, their vision, why they're doing this, their solution design approach, which is the bulk of the application process. Are they doing plant-based, cell-based, or blended approach? How are they thinking about certain criteria that I'll cover in the next slide? We ask teams about their business plans, as well as if they need partnerships along the way to ensure their success, so we can work on the back end to make these partnerships available to them. The technical submission deadline is on May 31st. And then, as I mentioned, the judging panel reviews all these submissions and selects up to 30 semifinalist teams. Those 30 semifinalist teams split a prize purse of $500,000. You will see the $15 million prize purse, which is the total prize purse, is distributed along the way and is offered in terms of in the form of milestone prizes to support teams with their solution development process. In the next phase, we see this slide has the second round and the third round of the competition. And we enter into specific prototype criteria, as I mentioned. So in the semifinals and the finals, the criteria are somewhat similar. They become more difficult towards the finals. But generally, we're looking at the structure and the size of the alternative product. In the semifinals, we're looking at a mid-size product that is structured, so whole cut. And in the finals, we look at the full serving size of the product. We also test for the nutritional profile and look for it to be equivalent to conventional products. We test for preparation and cookability. Here's where you see some difference between the semifinals and the finals. In the semifinals, we allow teams to prepare the product themselves and serve it to the judging panel for testing. In the finals round, we make it a little more difficult and ask impartial, independent culinary experts and chefs to cook the products themselves in order to test for how it functions. Sensory properties are being tested in the semifinals and the finals. In the finals, we ask teams to produce more of the product so we can ensure that teams can achieve the same level of consistency. And we also test for versatility. When the chefs cook the product, we ask them to cook the same product in 3 different cuisines to make sure it's as globally representative as possible. Environmental footprint is very important to us, and we work with teams. We know the industry is early, and you heard on the panel before, it's very early stage. So we work with teams to kind of gauge their projections and their production and the potential environmental footprint of their products in the future. So in the semifinals, we ask for paper submissions to answer some of the questions around the environmental footprint. And in the final stage, we put these more to a bigger test with an LCA study or something similar. Economic evaluation, similar to environmental footprint, there's a lot of open questions there. So we ask teams to supply documentation and paper submissions projecting their ability to compete and be cost competitive with products. The dates for these 2 rounds. So in the semifinals round, we're looking at a Q3 2022 end date for that round, and the finals go until Q4 2023. And the teams that perform well in the semifinals, up to 10 teams that move ahead to the finals, will split a $2.5 million prize purse. And on the next slide, we'll see the grand prize award for the finalist teams. So teams that make it all the way to the finals will split a grand prize of $10 million. The first place winner gets $7 million, second place gets $2 million, and the third place winner gets $1 million. And as I mentioned earlier, at the top of this presentation, there's a bonus prize for that is awarded to teams that can achieve whole animal origin-free growth media at the lowest production cost. And the team that does so wins $2 million. So this is it in a nutshell. Excuse me, the prize, some high-level information. And with that, I'm happy to take questions from the audience about the competition. All right, I see a question in the chat. Is it possible to compete with a project that is not developing chicken or fish, but another animal product? That is a good question, and we get it all the time. Unfortunately, only chicken and fish are eligible in this competition. We know teams are working on beef and pork and crustaceans, but this competition is focused on chicken and fish specifically for many considerations, some of which are, we're a nonprofit organization and we're trying to meet increasing demand that is global, and we see demand going towards chicken and fish products. So we want to make sure we are complementing existing efforts and incentivizing these types of products. Please submit your questions in the chat. I'm on for another few minutes, and I'm happy to take more questions. Yeah. Okay, another question. What type of projects are a good fit for this alternative protein competition? Any project is a good fit as long as you believe you can meet the criteria within the timeline of the competition. Xprize competitions strike a balance between being audacious and on the edge of innovation, but also achievable within the time frame. So if you have the expertise, the people on board, and the resources to feel like you can achieve the criteria that the competition is setting forth, then you are eligible to compete with us. A couple more questions in the chat. Can established companies participate? Are partnerships with corporations allowed? I guess those are two separate questions, and I'll answer both. So established companies are welcome to participate. As I mentioned earlier, teams can be one individual who believes they can do it, or a group, or a company that is established already. They can be a student group as well. So we don't have any limitations on the size of the team or the format or the structure of the team. To the other question, are partnerships with corporations allowed? The answer is yes. We are a nonprofit and we partner with anyone who can support the mission that we're trying to achieve. So if you go on the Xprize Feed the Next Billion website, you will be able to see that we have already partnerships there with a couple of nonprofits, but also open to partner with corporations. We especially look forward to partnering with corporations that can offer teams advanced market commitments, that can offer teams in-kind support in any way. So all partnerships are possible and allowed. Another question. How will the chefs for the final stage be selected, and where could I find more information on this process? That's a really great question. You can find more information about this process on the Xprize Feed the Next Billion website, and I'll put that in the chat as soon as the session is wrapping up closer to the end. So you can find more information on the website. There's a guidelines document, a competition guidelines document that you can download, and it kind of covers everything I said today in more detail. So you can read more about the rounds of the competition and the chef selection on that. There's not a lot of information about the chef selection yet because it's a later stage of the competition. But if you are a chef or know a chef and want to pitch yourself to be a testing partner with us and experiment with these products, please send us an email, and I'll put my the competition email and the website in the chat now. And I believe that's time. So thank you very much to everyone who asked questions in the chat and all of you listening. It's been great speaking with you about this competition and making this competition available to all of you. I'll share more resources in the chat, and we also have a booth. So if you don't have a chance to ask your questions here, please visit us in the booth. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, for joining us and helping the whole community understand this important challenge. And I hope many of us can participate. I feel a little bit hungry and talking about all this food and chefs and selection during lunchtime. Aren't you, Leila?
J'ai très faim. I agree with you, Ghislaine. The same. Like we are speaking about food, it's and the future of food as well.
But for those who want to know more information about the program, you can talk to Andy Menel. He will be at the Xprize booth at 3 p.m. when the different booths will be open.
Oui, très intéressant. Donc, on peut retrouver aussi Andy Manel pour nous parler de ce fabuleux prix de Xprize à 3 heures. So now that the global challenges have been put forth, let's see how to make these endeavors more sustainable.
Yeah, and then we are going to the next session of the event today. And the session is called Technology Spotlight: How Emergent Technologies in Biology Can Make Biomanufacturing More Sustainable. And we are very proud to welcome 3 Canadian entrepreneurs who are on their way to becoming leaders in the bioeconomy. So we are having the 3 of them, and specifically we have Jennifer Cote, co-founder and CEO of Better Milk. We have Nivata Balendra, founder and CEO Dispersa, and Adam Westbrook, metabolic engineering lead, Genesis Bioindustries.
Yes, and to moderate this exciting session, I'm pleased to introduce District 3 biospecialist and the mastermind behind our amazing 2 days Bioinnovation Conference, Anna Fernandez. Into you. Anna, c'est à toi. And please also remember that you can ask all your questions in the chat.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Leila, for this introduction. And we're going to start right away with Jennifer. Please tell us about Better Milk.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Anna, for presenting me. I'm super excited to be presenting Better Milk today at the Bioinnovation Conference. So I will begin. Milk is the original superfood. It was our first meal when we were born, and now it is part of our daily cravings. Globally, the dairy market was valued at $673 billion in 2019 and is expected to exceed the $1 trillion mark by 2024. However, the way we currently produce milk is not sustainable. Dairy market is responsible for 1/3 of the planet's ice-free land, 10% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions, and for 1/3 of the water footprint of human activity. The dairy industry is also responsible for tremendous amounts of suffering. Therefore, we need to find better ways to make milk more sustainably and ethically. I'm Jennifer Cote, and I'm the CEO of Better Milk, where we make milk with mammary cells for sustainable and ethical dairy products with no compromise on taste or texture. And now you're probably asking, how does she do it? Well, let me explain it to you. The power of our technology is the mammary cell. Here we can see a human mammary gland, which is pretty similar to what the cow mammary gland looks like. Here are the grape-like structures, which are called lobules, that host alveoli. And in these alveoli, there are mammary cells, which are more specifically called luminal alveolar cell. These cells are the mastermind behind lactation. They secrete milk inside of these cells, outside of the alveolus, and into the nipple to feed the newborn. Of course, there are many more cells involved in lactation, but I won't bore you with the nitty-gritty details today. So these cells are harvested from the cow, small quantities, without hurting the cow, and then are brought back to our lab and are immortalized, which means that they'll be living on forever. And it also means that we won't be needing to get cells from the cow ever again. Then these immortalized cells are genetically engineered to produce more milk, and then proliferated in trillions of numbers and seeded into this bioreactor, which has the same architecture as the mammary gland of the cow, so that they have the right structure to produce milk. Here is our mammary duct that we have created. The cells are coating the bioreactor and are secreting milk inside of this hollow lumen without ever coming into contact with the food that is given. Here is in green are the clusters of proteins that we have produced from our cells, but don't worry, the milk isn't actually green, it's only for visual purposes. Another special component about our technology is that we can create custom dairy products, which means that we can instruct our cells to produce lactose-free milk, low-fat milk, or even milk with added proteins. This is more time-efficient and cost-efficient than if we were to remove the lactose or remove the fat or add proteins to milk produced on dairy farms. Speaking about costs, if we want to offer you these custom dairy products at a competitive price, we need to tackle the medium challenge. In cellular agriculture, 95% of the marginal cost is due to the medium. The medium is the food that we give to the cells to make them healthy and happy. Right now, 1 liter of this medium costs $7,500, and 1 liter of medium is approximately what we need to make 1 liter of milk. So can you imagine paying $7,500 for a pint of milk? I don't think so. Therefore, Better Milk has tackled this challenge and has successfully been able to produce 1 liter of medium for 15 cents. And that will allow us to bring you the custom dairy products that you need, that you love, for a competitive price. This is the team behind all of this. This is me, I'm the CEO of the company. And this is Lucas, my co-founder, who is also CTO and responsible of genetic engineering. This is Nushin, who is our lead scientist at the University of Toronto and is responsible for the bioreactors that I talked to you about. We have also academic partners, Alaka and Benoit, some mentors in the United States to help us with the business, and a team of marketing researchers that are tackling consumer attitudes research. I'm Jennifer, and I'm really happy to present you Better Milk, a company that makes milk with mammary cells with no compromise on taste, feel, or texture. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And Adam, we're with you next.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Adam Westbrook, and I'm the metabolic engineering lead at Genesis Bioindustries. We upscale organic waste into affordable premium chemicals using proprietary bacterial cultures. So we probably all have a love-hate relationship with plastic. It's durable, it's very versatile, it's cheap. However, it's basically forever. And the promises made by plastic producers about being able to recycle them are largely been unmet. A great example of the impact that plastics have had on our planet is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. So this is literally a small continent of plastic between Hawaii and California. It's now over 1.6 million square kilometers, so that's over twice the size of Texas. It's literally a continent. And some other fun facts, just in the US alone, in 2018, there were 36 million tons of plastic produced. Less than 10% of that was recycled. And 27 million tons ended up in landfills, which is almost 20% of solid municipal waste. Now, in response to the plastic glut, corporations have been urgently trying to replace petroleum-based plastics with bioplastics. And the great news is that we have had these around for much longer than the human race even. I'm specifically talking about polyhydroxyalkanoates, or PHAs. And these are often considered the platinum of the plastic industry because they're biodegradable. We can tweak the composition so we can use them in any number of applications, and they often offer better physical and chemical properties than petroleum-based plastics. But of course, there's a problem, or there has been historically, which is the high cost. And that is what we are trying to address at Genesis, and have been doing so since our inception. So traditionally, PHAs are made from oils and sugar feedstocks derived from sugarcane, canola oil, and corn. And obviously, this is a problem of sustainability, or lack of sustainability, and also poor economics. because we're competing directly with food crops, and we also would need enormous arable lands to keep up with our insatiable plastic demand. So not really practical in the long run. Now at Genesis, we have been trying to address the issues that are hindering the adoption of PHAs as plastic substitutes. We've developed novel technology to produce PHA for mixed organic waste using mixed microbial cultures, and we anticipate about a 40% reduction in production costs compared to other processes using the more rich feedstocks like corn and sugar. Now, our patented process actually comprises 2 fermentation stages that rely on trade secret bacterial cultures that we've been working on for about 3 years. So the first of all, volatile fatty acids or VFAs serve as the carbon source to produce PHAs. Now we produce VFAs in stage 1 of our process through anaerobic fermentation of organic food waste. Once we produce those VFAs, we can then filter them and feed them to another type of mixed microbial culture, which will convert them to PHAs intracellularly. And then we can harvest those intracellular PHAs to be used in end products produced by various companies. Now we're currently focused on a specific copolymer called poly-3-hydroxybutyrate co-3-hydroxyvalerate, or PHBV. And the monomers are 3-hydroxybutyrate, or HB, and 3-hydroxyvalerate, or HV. Now, the composition of our PHBV is tunable. What that means is that we can change the HV content by modifying our fermentation parameters. And this will allow us to tailor the content, and then we can use the PHBV in any number of applications depending on the fraction of HV in our polymer. For example, for low HV content polymers of around 5 mol%, we can produce 3D printing filaments, mechanical pencils, golf tees, is just a few examples. And then if we increase that to say 20 or more mol% HV, then we can use, we get much greater flexibility, which means that we can make thin films and things like that. Now, in parallel with PHBV production and mixed microbial cultures, I'm also engineering bacterial strains to produce PHBV with the goal of having tighter control over polymer properties and yield. And of course, in addition to that, we're also engineering strains to produce PHAs that are of higher value that are sought after in the biomedical field, such as poly-4-hydroxybutyrate. And we're also going to extend this approach down the road to engineer bacteria to produce all kinds of value-added chemicals like antibiotics, amino acids, vitamins, other specialty chemicals, again, from organic waste materials. And finally, our technology has been verified by companies such as BASF. In 2018, we won an innovation challenge with them. We just won a big challenge, 2020 Novo Nordisk Innovation Challenge. We came in first place. On top of that, we're the youngest company to receive a $2.3 million grant from Sustainable Development Technology Canada, or SDTC, and we've won other numerous awards as well. And that is all for me today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adam. That's really a good example, a great example actually, of the circular economy. And before we start with questions, we'd like to hear from Nevada as well. So pass it over to you, Nevada.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nevada. I'm the CEO and founder of Dispersa. At Dispersa, we focus on the surfactant industry. You might wonder, what are surfactants? These are a type of specialty ingredient that are actually found at the heart of many soapy products that we use each day, especially during the pandemic, such as cleaning products, personal care, cosmetics, oil and gas industry, agriculture, and more. The surfactant industry is actually valued at nearly $60 billion, and this is due to its vitality in a lot of products and processes. Annually, we see that the global surfactant production is estimated to be over 20 million tons. Now, as we venture into the surfactant market and really break this down, we see 3 main categories that are petrochemical surfactants that are mainly chemically derived and petroleum-based. Next, we see oleochemical surfactants that can be biodegradable but still have petroleum content. And then the third category, or the small sliver that you see, are called biosurfactants. And this represents biosurfactants that are either chemically or biologically derived. However, within this, there is still a differentiation. What we see is that the chemically derived biosurfactants still contain palm derivatives. And as we now transition to a more renewable economy, we see that a lot of end-user formulators transitioning away from palm derivatives and wanting more natural alternatives, which is where we are in microbial biosurfactants. So within the surfactant industry, we have 4 different types, mainly non-ionic, cationic, anionic, and amphoteric. The most amount of surfactants are within the non-ionic sector, and each of these surfactants represent a different type of molecule that is best suited for specific end-user formulations. Some might be better suited for detergents, while others might be better suited for shampoos or conditioners, for example. Now, currently the problem is really that synthetic and even the eco-synthetic biosurfactants are derived from non-renewable petroleum sources. On the other end, we have natural biosurfactants that are costly and lack a range of options. At Dispersa, our goal is to solve this by bridging the gap in the available technology, by offering a unique platform of novel molecules that are natural and cost-efficient biosurfactants. We do this through our proprietary process that we're developing called Bioeterna, where we use novel microbes and then go through the process of fermentation extraction, where we cultivate and collect these biosurfactant ingredients. These are soapy compounds that are functionally the same as chemical surfactants. They are non-toxic, palm-free, and biodegradable. How Dispersa differentiates our biosurfactants from what's on the market currently are really based on these 3 main pillars of compatibility by offering a range of biosurfactants. We offer novel compounds, so it's an IP advantage and new market opportunity, as well as high performance ingredients. And now, as we look forward to where we will be entering into the market with our ingredients, with the rise of the pandemic, we saw that there was an increased demand for cleaning products, sanitation products. We also saw that there was an amplified interest towards transitioning towards natural ingredients. And so it made the most sense for us to enter into this market initially of cleaning and personal care. With this, we launched PuraSurf, our first line of formulations and ingredients containing biosurfactants intended for this market. Here we work with end-user manufacturers like cleaning product companies, for example, who wish to up their sustainability factor by including and replacing their synthetic surfactants with our natural alternatives. To date, it's been over 1.5 years since inception of Dispersa, and we couldn't have done this without the generous support of our partners and supporters. We have secured 2 paid pilot projects with first customers in the consumer packaged goods area. And later in the year, we will be scaling up towards our 400-liter capacity. We have also secured over $1.5 million in government funding and in-kind contributions. Next, we have our team. Together, we have experience ranging from microbiology, chemical engineering, chemistry, and business development in the clean tech sector. We're also currently hiring, so do check us out or feel free to send me an email if you're interested in joining our team. Together, our vision is to be a global leader in the surfactant market by advancing natural solutions 1 microbe at a time. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you so much, Nivada, Adam, and Jennifer. Let's go right away with the questions, and we'll start with you, Adam. Tell us about the production of PHA plastic. When this is produced at Genesis, do you use 100% of the food waste? And if not, what happens with the rest of the food waste that you take as an input?
No, I mean, typically the conversion efficiency going from the solid, well, rather wet solid food waste to PHPV is somewhere between 2 and 4%, which is actually quite good compared to the conversion efficiency you would get even from something like corn or sugar. So that's quite good considering how rich those carbon sources are. But the food waste actually, so the food waste is fermented, produces VFAs, and then the leftover broth that comes out of these fermentation tanks will be used by anaerobic digestion plants. This is our current business model, so that they can produce methane from it, because it can still be used to produce methane.
Cool, amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Adam.
Sure.
I have another question for Nevada. So, and I actually found this question in the FAQ from Dispersa.ca, but I really like it. So, are they microbes or bacteria in your final product? Can you tell us more in detail about this process of getting from the microbes to the final soap product, biosurfactant?
Yeah, absolutely. So our final product in the end contains no microbes. In fact, similar to Genesis, we essentially have our microbial fermentation process, and then we go through extracting the actual byproduct that is a result of what the microbes actually produce, which is a soapy compound called biosurfactants. In the end, the ingredient that we have can be in either a powder or a liquid type honey form, and this is what in turn that the end users then integrate into their own formulations for example. So they contain no microbes.
All right. Thanks, Ivana. And another question now for Jennifer. So from what I understood from your presentation, the milk at Real Milk is real milk. It's not a substitute of milk like coconut milk or almond milk. Can you tell us more about what you expect to be how do you expect to be the final product from your milk? Is it molecularly different than one that we would obtain, let's say, if we collect it fresh from a cow?
Actually, Buttermilk's milk will behave, taste, and feel exactly like traditional milk, which means that once inserted into dairy products, it will have the same texture, the same feel, and the same chemical functionality as real milk. So in that case, I think the best question to ask is not if it's molecularly different, but if it's functionally similar to real milk, and it's exactly the same. So yeah.
Okay, thanks for sharing. I'll go back to that in a second. To your point, very interesting. But I have a question for Adam from the audience, and is from Varsha. Adam, Varsha would like to know if your company has a scope for partnership of funding with PhDs working in other industrially biopolymers.
I mean, currently our primary focus is on PHAs. So I don't think we're going to be looking at producing anything else in the next few years. And it would, of course, have to, we'd have to do some kind of economic market analysis on this to see what the market is, how profitable it is. I have to actually look at how we can produce this polymer in an organism and whether it's compatible to the carbon sources we want to use. So the short answer is it's complicated. So, I mean, it's possible, but right now we're really not. I mean, I used to make hyaluronic acid when I was a PhD student, and that's something we've thought about, but we're really focused on what we're doing right now. So in the short term, I would say that's not really something we're looking into.
All right. Thanks, Adam. And Jennifer, I'll take it back to you to the point where you were saying if it's functionally similar. I wonder, and we had this discussion in the panel before, but I'd like to have your thoughts, and these are on consumer acceptability. Can you tell us about that in your case for Better Milk? Have you done any studies, or do you have any expectations on that?
Yes, that's a really good question. Right now, we have a team in Better Milk that are focusing on consumer acceptability of cell-based milk. We're basing on research on previous research that has been done with cell-based meat, in which consumers feel that they will likely consume cell-based meat if they are educated about the process, if they're certain about the safety of the food products, and also if the price is low and if the market share is big, which means that as more people will start to consume the products that are cell-based, more consumers will be likely to accept it.
Okay, yeah, and I imagine this will happen probably at the same time with many different products. So the education in the public will happen at the same time with milk, with meat, with other types. So that's good to hear you getting that positive feedback as well. I'm not going to ask this question to Nevada or Adam unless you can tell me that you have had some negative impact in the production of the surfactant or of the plastics. But my assumption is that in your case, you're actually using the way you're producing this as a leverage for your consumers. Can you comment on that? Perhaps first you, Nevada?
Yeah, absolutely. So is this in regards to like the actual process or the product, I guess? Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, what we're producing are palm-free natural alternatives to synthetic surfactants. As we scale up, of course, with the bioprocesses, I think for all of us, there's always the unique challenges that we have as we scale up step by step. And for us, as well as we're now transitioning towards a lab scale and going towards our demo scale, we're really looking forward to that. It's definitely going to be an adventure, but a challenge accepted.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. And a follow-up on that, at the moment, are you planning to expand the users of surfactants to remediation or cosmetics, or for the moment you're focused more on the soap part?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the moment, we're focused on the consumer packaged goods area, just because we've seen that there is a rise in interest for natural ingredients. But in the future, we will be diversifying into other markets like oil and gas, agriculture, and more.
Okay, thanks. Looking forward to that. I have here a question from Julia to Nevada and Jennifer. And Julia is wondering, what was your experience going from conception to medium scale-up work? Maybe you can start, Jennifer.
That's a good question. We aren't ready right now to have huge quantities of medium since we have little quantities of cells. Maybe Nevada is closer to this final project as I am, so I will leave the floor to Nevada, actually.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer, and thanks, Anna. We're currently producing our molecules at the lab scale, and now we're going to be going into using bioreactors. And so although we collect these materials at the end, of course, as we scale up, as I mentioned, there will be numerous challenges and optimization that's required at every step. Similar to what Jennifer has said.
Thanks. I have another question for you, Jennifer. It seems that people are interested in learning about better milk. So there's a question from Andy, and he's wondering if the milk from Better Milk is going to be capable of producing other products like cheese, butter, and I don't know, ice cream, etc.
Yes, absolutely. So what we're aiming to do is sell our milk to food companies who use dairy ingredients in their food. Like you mentioned, for ice cream, for cheese, we can even sell it to protein companies who use it to make protein shakes. We can even go as far as putting it in chips or any kind of foods that uses dairy products inside of their products.
Cool, thanks. And there was a follow-up question on that from Christos. He wanted to know if the milk from Better Milk is suitable for people with, I guess, lactose allergies, so dairy allergy.
Yes, absolutely. Like I mentioned in my presentation, our milk is customizable, which means that we can tell the cells to produce no lactose in the milk. So yes, it will be lactose-free if the consumer wants it to be lactose-free.
All right. Thanks for sharing. I'm thinking back to Adam. And tell us a bit about your work at Genesis. I saw from your title that you were an engineer at Genesis, and I would like to know what type of organisms do you engineer or have you engineered at Genesis?
Well, they're bacteria. So, before I came to Genesis, I was working with Bacillus and E. coli, and now we're mostly focused on E. coli because, it's got a proven track record for producing PHBVs, and Bacillus, we had hopes, but it doesn't seem to do it very well, so we're going with E. coli. But obviously our focus is on microbes because producing plastics and higher organisms just isn't, it's not feasible.
Right. Thanks. And a follow-up on that, because there's a lot of buzzwords in the clean tech sector. And especially you were mentioning about bioplastics and the difference between pH plastics and bioplastics versus biodegradable plastics. Can you tell us just a very short definition of this difference between all these plastics for the consumer? What should I be looking for when I get a bioplastic that is biodegradable, for example?
Well, I mean, a bioplastic would have to be produced by a microbe and therefore it would be biodegradable. So PHAs are the original bioplastic. Obviously, if you're looking at something that's produced sustainably, then it would preferably be something that's produced in a cell. But anything that's biodegradable is better than a petroleum-based plastic. But certainly, if you can produce it in a cell, then it's likely going to be a more sustainable process than if you're doing it synthetically, chemicals. But anything that's biodegradable is still much better than polypropylene or polyethylene, that kind of thing.
Okay, so they're synonyms. So a bioplastic is always biodegradable?
Yeah, and it would be produced inside an organism. It's produced inside a cell. So certainly, this isn't the only example, but again, PHAs are probably the best known example and the most versatile in terms of their properties and how we can tailor the properties, because PHBV is just one copolymer. There are a lot of other monomers that you could put in various combinations to produce plastics with different properties. So they're versatile, and they're the pathways are pretty well understood. So yeah,
all right.
Definitely a bioplastic though. Yeah.
Thanks, Adam, for clarifying that. I found that was very confusing. Just to go to a more general question, and since some of the topics of the conference that we're having, it's on talent, on specialized talent, on biology and bioinnovation, I wanted to ask this question to Nivata and Jennifer. On your experience about growing your team and finding a specialized talent that knows of bioreactors and fermentation and so on, or even mammary cells to produce milk. How has it been easier for you to grow your team and find people to join your team? We can start maybe Nivata, if that's
sure. Absolutely. I think that's a great question. And being within the biotech sector, but specifically in biomanufacturing, I think hiring tech talent is definitely the main component in advancing any of our product development. Our first hire was tech, and even now we're expanding our tech team. And I think especially on our end, we're coming from different angles. We like to have a team that's very diverse in terms of background, coming from different majors, for example, not only chemical engineering or having fermentation experience, but also synthetic biology, molecular biology. And so we're definitely trying to create that sort of well-rounded team as we continue to develop and go on to different stages in our product development. At the moment, given that we are going to be scaling up our process, we are looking for example, interns who have interest in molecular biology, as well as down the line we'll be hiring more for fermentation roles as we scale up and have that technical need for process engineers, for example.
All right. Thanks for sharing. Jennifer, would you like to comment on that too?
Yes, very similar to what Nivata was saying. Hiring is so important because it makes your company. What we've noticed is that exactly like Nivata says, we're not exactly looking at someone who made milk from mammary cells, because that doesn't exist. So what we've been doing is just looking at the interest of the actual person and looking at innovative ideas and just how they apply their research to our company. And I love this part. It's just amazing to meet so much people who want to change the world the way we want to do it.
Thanks for sharing. And we have a video question that we wanted somebody submitted to us for the three of you. Can we have that asked?
Hi, I'm Farah Benamain from Montreal in Vivo, and we're the Life Sciences and Health Technologies cluster of the Greater Montreal area. We're an economic development agency whose mission is to foster the growth and competitiveness of companies in our sector. And typically, we've worked most often with companies that are active in human health, which doesn't mean we're not interested in engaging more closely with companies in the life sciences sector more broadly. So the question that I have for you is, how can we do that, and how can we better support organizations like yourselves? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Farah, for submitting that question. Who would like to start? We have a volunteer. Otherwise, Adam, we can start with you.
Well, I mean, I'm not on the financial end of our business, but I mean, unfortunately, in general in Canada, there's not the investment in biotech beyond the medical field that there really should be, and you know, a lot of that just has to do with you know, I guess education of the larger population and even people in the government. I mean, I don't think many politicians really understand or know what we're up to, and so they need to understand how important the work that we're doing is. And unfortunately, there seems to be this kind of tug of war between accepting that, you know, the planet is in trouble and not, or just saying, well, you know, we have an economy to maintain and people have to survive, and so that's the priority. So I think accepting that we're heading down a road that's one way, and then understanding that the only way to resolve you know, these problems with global warming and plastics taking up our oceans is that we have to take action, which requires funding. And you know, it can start with the government, it can move on to private enterprise, because once you get the private sector on board, then the problem is solved, right? You get basically unlimited funding. So, but it starts, I guess, with government and awareness. It's my interpretation. So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. We actually have a panel right after this on that topic. Thanks for sharing, Adam. Nivata, Jennifer, do you want to share your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I agree completely with Adam. I think, yeah, it was on point.
Nivata, something to add?
Yes, really. I guess just to add, I think that especially specific to Quebec, there are more and more programs, and I think it's definitely headed in that direction towards helping to stir up and support the bioeconomy. I know that we have a few organizations, for example, the recent announcement on Fonds d'Action to help support the circular economy and develop startups in this sector. So definitely excited to see the momentum keep up and to continue.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, the three of you, for presenting your startups and for sharing your thoughts. I'm gonna wrap it up here and pass it back to Leila. So Leila, back to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Anna, and thank you for all the panelists today. It was super interesting. So, Ghislaine, c'est à toi la parole, ma chère.
Yeah, I was also very interested in listening the panel, and I'm excited because now we are heading to the final track. So let me put here on the main stage, because now, okay, so now we will have important decisions to make as we go ahead. We have 2 sessions coming up. So one session is for startups, and another session is for students and those who are searching jobs in the bioeconomy. For the first one, we will stay here, so you don't need to change or click in any link. And then we will discuss how to secure funding for your bio startup. We will have with us Pei Wu, CTO of Indie Bio, Luc Pelocan, Advisor, National Research Council, and Patrick Ganet, President and CEO of EcoFuel. Xavier Henri Hervé, he will moderate this discussion.
Yeah,
yes, maybe better for you to explain the second session that we will have for students.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ghislaine. So if you are a student, as you are saying, or recent grad, interested in working in the bioeconomy, so please join me on track B, working in bioinnovation, the scientist modern career path, with my dear collaborator, Claudie Noël, Director of Skills and Talent Development at Montréal In Vivo, Marie-Pierre Cosette, Intersectorial Project Manager at les Fonds de Recherche du Québec, and Frédéric Leduc, Startup CEO of Human Biosolutions. I'm excited to moderate this panel, which will take place on the session section of Hoping upper left corner.
Okay. So just revising, now you need to make choices. So one choice is either if you are a startup and you stay here in the main stage with me, or if you're a student or a recent grad, you join Leila by clicking on the upper left corner on hopping. But before we separate, we would like to invite you to join the networking session at 3 p.m. once we finish the discussions that are coming. Then we will have our speed datings, which will be in 3-minute sessions, but can be extended if you want. To enter the networking session later on, you just click the networking and ready, and you will join the discussions. So it was a pleasure to be being with you today, and hope to reconnect with you in 1 hour.
Thank you, Ghislaine. Donc, rendez-vous au networking à 15h et profitez du réseautage avec les participants et les participantes de la bioinnovation. Et maintenant, please follow me to the session stage for our discussion. Suivez-moi à la section session si vous êtes étudiant ou étudiante ou récemment diplômé. Merci et on se voit bientôt, Ghislaine. I will see you soon.
See you soon. Bye, Leila. Thank you.
Bye.
Hello, startups. I think we can all agree that securing funding for your bio startup is never easy. This next panel will give you invaluable insight into how investors view valuations, due diligence, crowdfunding, team building, scalability, and much more, all different but crucial pieces in your startup journey. I will have for this discussion 3 different panelists that I will introduce. So Pei Wu is partner at SOSV for SOSV and CTO at IndieBio, the world's largest life science accelerator. He is also responsible for portfolio management and technical oversight there. Career highlights include her role as the scientific director at Telefónica's Moonshot Factory and science director at the US Office of Naval Research. Pei is passionate about bringing engineered material and systems to biology. So welcome, Pei. Then we will have Luc Péloquin, who is an executive manager with more than 35 years of experience in molecular biology, R&D, and also 10 years in microtechnology business management. He joined the National Research Council, which advises SMEs to increase innovation and commercialize their technologies, as an industrial technology advisor and project manager. And finally, joining Luc and Pei, we have Patrick. As president and CEO of EcoFuel, a startup accelerator in the clean tech space, backed by Cycle Capital, Patrick has always strived to create social and environmental impact through technology. He has helped build a wide variety of businesses, helping them in their ever-changing entrance in the digital world. And to moderate this panel, I'm pleased to reintroduce you to Executive Director and co-founder of District 3 and startup founder himself, Xavier-Henri Hervé. So welcome, Xavier, to moderate this panel. And up to you.
Merci. Thank you, Ghislaine. It is with great excitement that I'm getting to meet all of the audience and to welcome our panel. So hello to Pei, to Luc and Patrick. Bonjour, Luc, Patrick, Pei.
Bonjour. Bonjour, bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everyone.
Welcome to Virtual Montreal in District 3.
Yes, sir.
I would like the audience to maybe warm up and get to know you first, if you don't mind, before we go on to the panel discussions. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
If you could just answer the question, like I'll ask each one of you a question, and if you can answer just in 1 or 2 words, okay. And that'll warm things up. So Luc, let's start. What gets you up in the morning?
I think the pleasure and honor to speak or chat with entrepreneurs. That's all I.
Thank you. And Pei, yourself, what motivates you to invest so much of yourselves in the bioeconomy?
The opportunity to bring new technology to market.
Cool. And Patrick, what wakes you up at night?
Am I having enough impact? Are we creating enough impact for our economy, our society? That's what wakes me up. Definitely.
Oh, I can completely relate to that one, Patrick. Well, welcome again to all of you, and let's start with the questions. Pei, IndieBio is, to my knowledge, the largest bioaccelerator in the world. You guys have been investing in biotech startups before anyone else that I know of. Certainly as actively. You're real visionaries. You've invested in more than two of, not in more, in actually two of our D3 startups, Drop Genie and Hyacinth. So you know the world over from Quebec to around the planet. What's your vision for the bioeconomy for Quebec, for Canada? What from your perspective might be our strength and we move forward fast?
It's hard to say specifically for Quebec. I think that the bioeconomy in general is a great opportunity for many for many regions to really take advantage of existing capabilities in science and technology, and applying it into all new spaces and applications that actually have a chance to be sustainable, and really thinking about what an economy that's not solely extractive, that's not solely a consumption-based economy, and really thinking about how to bring about new products that may leverage waste, for example, and circularizing the economy, or bringing about much lower energy approaches to producing materials through synthetic biology and biofermentation. More water efficient manufacturing approaches through more efficient green chemistry techniques, for example. All of these really will and are likely to take advantage of the immense advances that have been made recently in being able to engineer biology with predictability and with reproducibility. And I think that opportunity is something that Quebec, Canada can really harness, especially given the rich university science and technology background that y'all have, as well as the strength of your government support in R&D.
Yes, that's giving us a lot of hope. I completely relate to the fact that the bioeconomy is here, and we have the capabilities to jump on board. And get things done with creation of value, and at the same time having a really positive impact on our planet. So yeah, I completely relate. Thank you. Patrick, the bio disruption in the sustainable world, where do you think we should head? I mean, there's so many directions. There's biomass with alternative energy. There's alternative sourcing to petrochemical strains. There's new food sources with much less greenhouse impact. Where do you see us go? Where do you see Canada? Where do you see bio? Where should bio focus?
That's a huge question, as you know. That
thought I'd set you up.
We could take 2 hours just to talk about travel. How do we positively impact travel through bio, and then food for another 2 hours? I mean, it's massive what's happening right now. I wouldn't know where to begin. I'm just thinking of some examples that we have on hand close enough that some examples of startups I think that are inspiring. I'm thinking about planetary hydrogen, to name a few. That one, planetary hydrogen really focused on developing clean hydrogen through a super interesting process. Agrisoma as well, that produces biofuels with a non-food crop, is another example. So I think biofuels is a hot, very, very hot topic. How can we how can we replace existing biofuels? How can we replace existing means of combustion or engine combustion with other bioproducts? I think is a massive undertaking, and I think is a track that is going to be worthwhile of looking out for and pursuing. That's one area where I see a lot of advancement. How do we leverage waste as well? To produce biofuel eventually. I like what's happening in bioplastics. I love Bosque is one other example, which I love to see grow. I'm not sure if you're all familiar with Bosque, Canadian-based company. They develop compostable material from forest byproducts, right? So it's fully compostable bioplastics made from biomass. I think it's an amazing concept. So that's another area I think that's really rich in terms of disruption and innovation. Biochemicals I think are going to be super interesting to watch. How do we develop from the biomass, materials like plastics, for packaging? I think are all tracks that are super interesting to watch. Hydrogen as well. How do we produce clean hydrogen that can be readily used for transportation, marine transportation, air transportation? So, I'm just scratching the surface here, Xavier, but these are all super fascinating subjects.
Yeah, so I hear you. You're joining the pay in saying that the world is extremely wide. There's tons of opportunities. It's a question of getting moving. You're basically telling our audience, you guys are waiting for investment opportunities. You're not being very picky on which field it's going to be. Just get stuff done is your message, right?
Yeah, the money. We're going to talk about investments a little later on, but the money for investing is there. What we need is projects. We need more. We need a richer pipeline of potential startups that are going to grow massively over the next 5 years. That's really what we're looking for, and that's one message I wanted to convey today. Great.
We'll come back to that point because that's a really important point, because I think the world is not sure about that right now. So that's great to come back to it. Luke, I want to ask you a question first about, in many cases, to be investor ready, they need to be product ready with some development roadmap. How do you see our current government policies when it comes to product roadmap in non-dilutive for the bio efforts?
I can surely talk about the ARAP program. The ARAP program, if you go back a few years, we were essentially investing in de-risking technologies. But in the more recent years, we give more importance to the business case, because this is the return. We're giving out money, non-refundable money to SMEs. So we have to see a return for the Canada, for the taxpayers, and the return is shown in the business case. In the all the other sectors, the return is fairly easy to measure, because it's sales. Basically, we give you 1 million, and we expect you to generate 10 million of sales in 4 or 5 years. That's easy to be done. But in life science, it's not that easy. But we look at in the investor, the valuation of the company that increase and enable them to get more investments from the private sector without diluting themselves too much.
So you do have I wouldn't say a specific approach for bio, but you're going to be looking at different criterias if you're helping out those that are in the bio world and those that are creating their business cases for their product development. So that's
exactly. The business case has to show some return. For the biotech industry is different. It will be a creation of jobs, the benefit for the health of Canadian, wealth increase, etc. But mostly investments they will secure over the years.
Okay, good. Let's get then into our investors here. Hey and Patrick, what what in your mind makes our entrepreneurs ready for you to seriously consider them? Let's just say it the way it is. I was really happy to hear from you, Patrick, that the investors are out there. It's wrong to say that they're not out there for bio in Canada. It's not because they're not named bio investors that they're not there, but you're let us know what you want them to have reached before they come and see you.
You want to take that, Paige, or do you want to?
Sure. I mean, so at IndieBio, we really have the advantage in that we operate at a very early stage. We will take companies that are a paper idea and a couple co-founders who have the technical wherewithal to move forward and put together a proof of concept. We can take on that risk because we're very, very early stage pre-seed program and investor. So because we get to look at companies that early, we have much more flexibility in terms of evaluating the appropriateness of that investment. A proof of concept really to us means we need to have some idea that this is scientifically possible. There's no laws of physics that have to be broken in order to do this, and there is a path, and there may be multiple paths, and we're not wedded to single paths. What we really care about are solutions, and what that solution is going to enable in the future. And so, with that in mind, we are very open as long as you can show us that there is a solution to some kind of long-standing problem or large-scale problem affecting human and or planetary health. In many ways, those two are intertwined and overlapping, but that's really where we look. Ideas are abundant. It really is a matter of bringing together the right starting team to execute and really credibly say, we are ready to commit our lives to this idea and solving this problem. And we have a reason for believing we can do that.
That's cool. You're basically giving a lot of scientists a lot of confidence here, because you're saying we're not looking for R&D, so don't come and show us something that's not technology ready, so to speak. But you are looking for very competent teams that can go the distance and deliver.
I'll adjust that slightly. I'll say we're looking for teams that are ready to do the development and get to a product. The R part is, sometimes a necessary part of the process, but we're ready for teams that want to really hit the ground and get that development underway and move towards product milestones. They may be very, very early product milestones. They don't have to be getting to an MVP, as it were. It really is about making sure that we have confidence that the concept is feasible, albeit risky.
Okay. Yeah. And I remember when you guys invested in, you were one of the first investors, if not the first, I think, in Hyacinth, which are today the first company to ever commercialize medical or medical application CBD. And you were there the whole way, starting with basically an ideas team. And I remember when the boys were just around the ideas table. So really cool. Thank you. And you, Patrick, what is it that Ecofuel and Cycle Capital look for when it comes to?
It's great that Pei started on this question, because we come after in the continuum, right? So we're typically we're an accelerator, so we help entrepreneurs that are at a point where they're validating product market fit. So really, that's where we help entrepreneurs, and we're looking for startups that have a product they're starting to sell in the market. They're looking to find that sweet spot and really to grow their business. And one thing I find is that a lot of the scientific profile entrepreneur has a sort of tendency to surround himself or herself with other scientists or engineers. And really the feedback we give oftentimes is that we need to have a balance. We're looking for that balance between the scientific entrepreneur and the business-minded entrepreneur to complement each other. And oftentimes it's not the tech that is the real issue. Is product market fit, is validating with your clients. I oftentimes talk to entrepreneurs that have all their product mapped out and how it's going to be used, but they didn't talk to a whole lot of clients, right? They didn't do that customer validation phase thoroughly, and didn't apply a scientific method to developing their market, if you want. And that's something that that we look for, in an entrepreneur that has the ability to validate, to do customer validation, and really to validate the business model. So I think that's really one aspect that needs to be looked into and really developed is the business side of the startup project.
If I could add on to that, actually, one thing that we try and put a lot of effort into is we often have very technical founders. The vast majority of our founders are PhDs that develop the concepts either in their graduate research or their postdoctoral research. What we strive to do is help transition scientists into a business-minded entrepreneur who's capable of reaching those goals that Patrick just mentioned, and being able to think about that customer and be empathetic to the customer, and think about that product market fit. And we view that as really a process of re-education in some ways. There's some aspects of being a scientist, a trained scientist, that don't lend themselves too well on the business side. And so finding that balance is one thing that we work towards.
Yeah, and it's a journey. We find that we focus on scientific entrepreneurs in partnership with several other organizations, and on one hand we've got bright people that need to accept that they're going back to school when they're becoming entrepreneurs, and that's not an easy thing to do. And then we need to get them to understand what the value of doing 100 customer interviews in 12 weeks, and that's doable. We've seen them do it, but there's it's a transformation. And I'm going to go back to an important point that Patrick was mentioning. Team building is where an enterprise becomes an enterprise. It's by definition a bunch of people, right? So you need other skills. You can't be good at everything, and so that's really important. Yeah. Luc, when you're working with these people that are coming to build their business case, what's your sweet spot? Where is it that you wish they would have done more, or you want them to be open to in working with you?
Most of them, they are scientists or engineers, and they're not business people, most of them. So they come with predictions of sales that are not backed up in the real world. So they're not credible. They should speak to other people. They should validate their market first. They often come with big numbers. This is a 2 billion market value, but they don't specify where they will get their sales and how they will do that. And this is what we like to see. Often they come and they say, "Oh, it's a great technology and it will sell." Yeah, it will sell. That's not enough for us.
But did you? Yeah, and the question is, well, it will sell. Did you talk to a client actually? How many clients did you talk to make that assumption, right? And that's where oftentimes you've got a lot of work to do, right? Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
I talk to a lot of people, maybe 500 entrepreneurs per year, and it's always it's often the same scenario. They talk about their technology. They're in love in their technology. So in about 5 minutes, I told them, okay, I get it. I know what is your technology. Now I want to know what is your business. That is more important for us to know what is your business, where you're gonna sell, when you're gonna sell, etc., etc. And so they try to speak a little bit about the business, but they're getting out of their comfort zone, and they get back to the technical stuff very often. And I have to tell them, yeah, you told me, I know what you've done. I know what you're doing. I want to talk business. So yeah. Go on.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, Luc. And I think that's it's a great point, and I see that too. Oftentimes, the entrepreneur who's in love with his tech, and
that's their baby. That's their baby.
Yeah, and that's oftentimes an issue because sometimes you need to fall out of love with your tech to rebuild the business model, right? You have to have that sort of distance perspective on what you've built to adapt it to the market, unfortunately or fortunately, because you found a new opportunity. And that's sometimes I think that as investors, what investors look for is that person coachable, whether he's a scientist or a business person or a marketing person. Is that person coachable? Is he willing, or is she willing to listen and adapt and evolve the business model, evolve the technology over time? I think that's one of the crucial tests that has to be.
Yeah, good point. We do this all the time. The first 5 or 10 minutes, we're trying to see if he's coachable. If he's not, he's done.
Guys, it's really important, and I think we need more coaches. By the way, if there's any bio coaches out there, give me a call because I'm looking for some. I've got some questions from the audience for you guys. Patrick, I think this one's for you. Animal agriculture is one of the most, the main factors of greenhouse gas emissions, and it's believed that alternative protein products could reduce these impacts of animals on the planet. Do you consider that as a clean tech investor as a clean tech project?
Absolutely, and like I said at the beginning of the call here, we don't have enough with this the next 30 minutes to cover all topics. I think food and sustainability is a massive subject. We just started an ag tech track this spring with Zone Ag Tech to devote specifically to that problem, and how do we help this subsector grow and evolve, and absolutely we think it's a priority to look into, and we already have a first cohort of 4 companies in that program. And I think we're going to be working on more programs directly devoted to agriculture, make it more efficient, greenhouse production, greenhouse agriculture as well. Looking at the model in the Netherlands, how do we potentially replicate that in an area where we have low cost clean energy? It should be a priority as well. So as I said, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg here.
Hey, I have a question for you. I think there's Philippe from Neuralink. He's basically saying, please confirm the message as I understand it. What you guys are looking for is great teams, scientific background, of course, good teams, because they'll find product market fit. They'll have the ideas that'll get there. You just need the team.
Sorry, this is a question to confirm or deny whether that is true.
Yeah.
Looking for a great team is a huge aspect of this, and it gets back to the earlier conversation that y'all were having around a team's capacity to adjust and pivot and not be overly precious about their baby. I say this to our teams all the time. Not every baby is cute, and I firmly believe that. So we had companies who started out as a stem cell company and are now making molecular compositions of new alcohols and liquors because their approach just didn't work. So they had to just completely pivot, and now they're doing great. It's a company called Endless West, and they're selling this really interesting and amazing product on the marketplace now. That flexibility of mind and a commitment to solving problems is really one of the big aspects that we look for. Having the openness to take that journey as a scientist who has just spent a lifetime establishing your bona fides as an expert in some very narrow domain, being able to have the humility and openness to say, I need to learn this whole other scope, and then starting to recognize where your biases may lie, and adjusting accordingly. That's also important. And one thing that we really try and emphasize a lot, despite my sort of jerky communication right now, is that communication is a huge part of this journey, and your ability to share your idea and your vision and your plan and your path to investors, to customers, to your family who doesn't understand anything about the technology. You need to be able to have that conversation in 8 different ways, still be authentic, and still convey the importance of what you're doing. And I think that's a skill that is sometimes undervalued, but does require effort.
Definitely requires a lot of effort. It's a mind shift for many, and it's not something some people are born with it, but most people need to play it out to learn it, for sure. In the US, where our startups are of course thinking, because there's Canada, there's Quebec, there's Montreal, but there's the USA. What are some of the sectors that you would say are more friendly to the bio? Which ones are ready to move today?
I have a very biased perspective. I think there are so many sectors that are already moving in that direction. We at IndieBio have been some of the earliest players in the alternative protein cell-based meat space. So the food sector, obviously very open to this, agriculture, and so the fuel petrochemical space in general, and then really moving more broadly into materials, whether it's kind of large scale commodities type materials, for example, in the building material space, wood space. We have a company that's making a plant-based leather now called Microbes, and that's the fashion industry is really opening up to the idea of intaking biotech to bring about more sustainability into the industry. There are very few sectors I can think of that aren't trying to start scratching how biotech can bring about some game-changing technologies into their space. I think the fundamental capability of biology to allow for sort of large scale, lower energy process, complex chemistries, things like that really lend itself to a wide diversity of sectors. So in some ways, it's like a long conversation to have to do a laundry list.
I get it. It is. It goes back to the point at the very beginning. Patrick, I have a more wild question for you. What's been the worst investments that you've done that are bio-related, and why?
Worst, I mean, there are investments. Investing in a company is always a journey, right? You're going to place some bets, some positions, and sometimes the industry takes longer to deploy. So I'm not going to name companies in this discussion for sure, but I can share lessons learned. I mean, about investing in clean tech. One thing it's for sure is the time horizon. I spent a lot of time of my years as an entrepreneur in digital tech, where the timelines are much shorter. And it's something that's always a shock for me when I see roadmaps, in hardware, clean tech sometimes. I find those roadmaps very long, and I think that adds a lot of risk to an investment, right? So typically long roadmaps are hard to digest as an investor. And some of these industries are not at the level of maturity that you would want them to be. So they're not maturing as fast as you want them to be. So you're not seeing the growth that you were expecting. So it's not always the question of, is the entrepreneur flexible enough, or has he done his job in terms of pivoting and growing the company. It's also a question of timing. I spent Teo Taxi was my personal experience. There was a question of timing and business model, right? Was it a good investment at that time? Of course it was. Did it work out? No, it didn't. Is it the fault of the entrepreneurs? Maybe in part, but there's also the industry. There's that timing factor, which is absolutely crucial. So those are the lessons learned, from my part as an entrepreneur and an investor.
Yeah, timing is often, the cited most important factor in success of an innovation. Is your world around you really conscious that it has that need, and is it time to go? For example, we have on the audience, we have a person named Kanak who's saying, alternative proteins, will they provide the same satisfaction to consumers as the original animal food? It's a complex subject: texture, safety, genetics. There's the GMO question. There is the questions of taste, of course, and there's so many different elements. Will this, can we consider that the market today is ready? Is it the right time? Is this environmental pressure on consumers making them try all these new foods or not?
Are regulations up to date? Will the regulations be, or the regulation context be, an obstacle and slow down the roadmap, the process? These are all super complex. It's a super complex question. And timing, yes, is one answer. Pei, I see you were about to answer yourself.
Well, I was going to make a comment about timing in this context. I think we talk a lot about timing in part because we're often, and this is natural, talking about venture-backed startups, and that's where these timelines tend to be quite short because of the nature of how the financing dynamics are. But there's also room for, and within the ecosystem, and in partnership with governments, and Canada has done a great job with injecting non-dilutive capital into the ecosystem. For example, where slower capital in conjunction with some of this higher speed capital, if you will, can allow for some of that timing mismatch between the market and the tech, and that push-pull tension to allow technologies to help get that market caught up with where they're headed. It's I think a piece that often gets lost because everybody's really focused on these outsized returns in venture, but there are other models of startups that can do great, that can bring about really meaningful products into the marketplace and still bring about innovation as well. And also very true about whether or not the regulatory environment is caught up with the market as well. And that is in part education on the part of the startups. If you're going to be a sector defining or sector creating startup, there is the responsibility in some ways to help with educating the consumer, help with educating the regulators around different aspects of the technology and why it is safe and why it is meaningful and why it's worth supporting through these non-financial levers as well.
Yeah, I heard both Patrick and yourself, Pei, to bring up regulations, and it's so important. People don't understand that regulations is not an immediate result. but it's a massive result when you've built up the relationships with the regulatory authorities for two reasons. One of which you'll influence more than one imagines because you're in the field and they need that information. And the other thing is, the other side of the coin is that you'll be informed often before others are of where the regulations are going, and you'll position your products accordingly. So I think that framework of regulations in all industries that are regulated, and food certainly is, and so is the
food. Yeah, travel is highly regulated.
Energy, every so many things are regulated. And Luc, when you look across Canada, because as you're working with IRAP, and IRAP is a national infrastructure, NRC is a national infrastructure. The name says it all. Do you see ecosystems of bio that are more alive at one end of Canada than others? In this whole experience of yours with moleculars and bio stuff.
Yeah, sure. And part of my job is to be part of the bioproduct sector team. And we see much more activities on the west side of Canada and in the Maritime, not more in Quebec and Ontario. For the drug business, it's mostly in Ontario and Quebec. So, yeah, there is a diversity of activities for the different sectors. One thing I like to say is that nature is popular presently with the young Canadian population. So everything that's related to nature will be popular, is already popular, and will remain very popular. And for the startups, I like to leave just one important message. There is a new organization called Innovation Canada. Their mission is to make matches between SMEs' needs and programs, federal and provincial programs. And they have a program browser that has a very strong backend. You can rely on it.
Okay, so that's a really good tool. You're pointing to a tool that says, you've got many opportunities in Canada, yeah. And that site is one that guides you through them and through the meanders sometimes of what that means.
Exactly. Whatever you need. Help in marketing, to hire people, for IP, any needs you have, this should be your first contact in Canada. It's free.
Great. We will post that later to the teams. We have a question from Jay Chen, who's seeing, who wants to go deeper into this regulatory context. And the three of you feel free to answer. They're saying, what does it mean tangibly in terms of actions? Is it acceptability? Is it moving towards? Is it early, very early stage discussions? I'm seeing a bunch of words thrown in there, but they're basically, I think the question is asking, how do you materialize regulations or relationships with regulations?
I mean, I can provide a little bit of context here, and giant caveat being I'm not terribly familiar with the regulatory bodies in Canada, but for our companies, whether it's food or therapeutics or medical drugs, obviously the FDA is where you need to point your direction, and number one, educating yourself around what the existing regulations are. And number two, actually really diving in and understanding where there are open channels of communication with the regulators. The FDA has many different programs in place to allow companies that are in the early stages of development of their technologies to have early conversations with regulators or regulatory scientists to help inform the companies around how the regulators think about things. The flip side of that is also that it gives the companies an opportunity to educate the folks from the FDA as well about what's new, what's different, and why it's a good safe solution. We are more broadly working in sort of the agriculture space, and in the U.S. there's a shift in how we're thinking about the bioengineered products space, and that's an evolving regulatory framework that the last I looked at it, I don't think has even been fully defined. And so, in those types of sectors, what's really helpful is if you're a company that's working in a bit of a gray space, regulatory-wise, providing education out into the world, whether it's through blog posts, whether it's through participation in conferences, whether it's, in any opportunity where you can demonstrate that you are a thought leader in this space and that you have a deep understanding of it, and you can share that information to allow people from outside your space to become more comfortable and familiar with the technology. That can go a long way towards, I think, smoothing that path out. It is a long process if you're really talking about a kind of extra regulatory space, or something that's got very nascent regulatory framework around it. So it's something that it's good to be aware of from the outset, without, I think, overly letting yourself be constrained by imagined or perceived regulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think. Sorry,
yes, please.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to back up with Paige saying it. What I found in the bio, I did a bit of research a few months ago, and what I found in the U.S. Was that there was a lot of trade associations which were moving in, uniting on this front of the new regulations, and so there is organizations out there that are feeding each other pretty good ideas as well. Just the collaboration is leading them to learn about each other's markets and opportunities. So it's a value building beyond the regulatory framework. It's allowing them to understand where they all need to go, and there's so much room in this space that it's not about who's going to grab the little piece of pie. It's about who's going to help grow the pie. So it's a very different, very early stage framework. Yes, Patrick, your thoughts, please.
If I may add, personal experience with regulatory authorities, it's something that you might want to push aside as an entrepreneur, but I strongly recommend that for any entrepreneur to start looking into regulations in your industry, understand them, educate yourself on them, and then start acting, as Pei was mentioning. Going through industry associations that can relay information to government bodies, participating in meetings with elected officials. And what you're doing is, we have to remove the stigma of lobbying from that discussion. It's more about exchanging ideas and making regulations evolve over time and participating in the evolution of your own industry. I think as an entrepreneur, it's not only a task, it's more than even a responsibility. It should be part of your ethos, part of doing business, right? You're not alone in your ecosystem. You are part of a group of entrepreneurs. You're with with government officials as well that have a common interest in making the ecosystem grow. So I think it has to be part of your realm of responsibilities as an entrepreneur, for sure.
Thank you. And Luc, do you see regulations from your perspective as influencing the way you guys allow
This is very important, and we have specialists in the regulatory processes all across Canada in all sectors. As an example, I will tell you a little story. We had a client. He was early in the R&D, and he was working on a new cell line to produce recombinant proteins. And we just asked him, do you think your process will work with this cell line, which was a pre-approved cell line already used in other processes? And he said, oh, sure. We said, work with this cell line. It will make the regulatory acceptance much, much, much easier. So they have to address regulatory problems very early in the process. It will save a lot of money and time.
and feasibility, the economic feasibility validation. We have a challenging question here from a gentleman named Daniel. He's saying, we're talking in this context of bio, we're really framing ourselves, like it or not, in a deep tech startup world. And he's saying, what's the incentives to stay in Canada when if I reach out to American investors or if I move to the US, I can, raise 10 times, maybe 100 times more money than I ever will in Canada. So why should I stay is the ask.
So that's the main problem we had in Canada for the last 50 years. And it is still a major problem for Arab, because when a company needs more capital to develop the product, they move where is the money, and the money is in US or Europe, and mostly US, and therefore they have to have found the money we gave them, but that's peanuts versus what they're getting. I don't know the answer.
Well, I think that we there's a question of mindset. I think as an ecosystem in Canada, we need to evolve. We need to be better at that game in terms of being competitive with U.S. investors. So the ecosystem itself has to raise the bar to be able to keep entrepreneurs here. I have many examples of entrepreneurs who left Montreal to go to in the Bay Area, for instance, and it's a shame. It's a shame to lose entrepreneurs that will be building an ecosystem elsewhere, folks that have been educated here that will, so, but on the flip side, I think we also have to make our entrepreneurs more sensitive to the importance of building wealth locally and giving back to your community and being part of a community. I think an entrepreneur cannot be separated from its community. Yes, you can set up shop anywhere in the world and go where the money is, but at the end of the day, there's also, I think we also have a social responsibility in a sense. Maybe I'm idealistic, but I think entrepreneurs have to be part of a social fabric and have to play a role in that sense. So it's not always just about money,
Yeah, even in a very pragmatic sense, there is hiring, there is expertise, there is culture, there is R&D tax credits, there is supply chains. Business life isn't just about money, and as a matter of fact, maybe I can ask Pei that, but I find that yes, VC source funding is an important vector. It brings validation to more funding, and it's definitely a go. But in many cases, the VCs only represent a very small percentage of the actual companies that make it. It's not just a journey of VCs, and if you're gonna do it, then you're probably, I would suspect, someone will be more able and more comfortably able to do this if they're in their own national land. They know the space.
So number one, I'll say, yeah, come to IndieBio, come to America. But seriously, we actually have.
We've seen many do it.
We'll take you with open arms. But we have companies that have come from Canada, are still in Canada, and have. And I will say this very explicitly: we like Canadian companies in part because Canada has a really strong combination of infrastructure. Y'all have lab space seemingly coming out of your ears, and our companies, we've seen them benefit from the investment that Canada has made into making infrastructure available to startups, which is a very difficult capital cost. And then in combination with programs like the IRAP programs, all the various regional and federal funding schemes that y'all have available for your startups that actually really do quite a bit to supercharge what our startups are able to accomplish, even if the dollar amount seems small. So I think I see, we get excited when we see Canadian companies, and it's not because we can dangle potentially more money, or because we think that they'll come to San Francisco. It's because we see the value that the Canadian ecosystem and your various provincial systems that are in place to help nurture and launch startups using the resources that y'all have in place. Not to mention, the great educational system that y'all have, and which is a huge piece of why your startups are interesting to us. So I think capital is one thing. The ecosystem is a whole other thing, and y'all do have great systems in place.
Yeah, and just to give you some numbers to compare, Montreal as an example, when compared to Boston, has the same number of university students. Actually, it has the same number of PhDs globally. We need to get better at getting our PhDs to go from lab to market. We don't score nearly as well as Boston does, but I think we need to keep going on that journey and accelerate that. I have, we have a few minutes left. I have a question to us, the accelerators, because I think these incubators, and university-based infrastructures, because we do stuff leveraging, our donors' money, our universities' money, our government's money, and we basically charge, little, if anything at all, to our startups. We ask them to commit. We ask them to deliver. That's the reason why we like to help them if they do commit and continue to deliver. But what would you give us as advice so we can help them be better ready when they come to your doorsteps? Whether let's go around the table. Maybe we'll start with you, Luc.
They have to do their homework. If often they come to us and they say, we have an innovation, there is no competition, and it will sell. Basically, we hear this. Okay, they have to do their homework. Show a solid business case. Make sure I will say, wow.
Okay, you need the wow factor to be prepared.
Yeah.
And you, Patrick, what do you like?
I like to see a clear value proposition, with customer validation. Talk to me about your clients. Talk to me about your conversations with clients. What's the feedback? What's the traction? What's your value prop, right? That's sometimes, and those questions oftentimes open up a can of worms, because no, we didn't talk to too many clients. Our value prop isn't clear. We have 3 products in one. We have a services business, we have a product business, we have an R&D business, and I think that's, for me, those are is one critical aspect of the discussion.
So you get wowed with the clients by the
value prop and clients. Yep.
Yeah. So how well connected is the entrepreneur with his or her clients?
Yeah.
And on a closing word, please, Pei, what's your perspective? What do I need to do to get these teams ever better ready?
I think yes to both what Luc and Patrick have already said. For us, what will be the wow factor is convince us and help us believe and understand that you are truly committing your life to solving this problem that you say you're going to solve. We want to know that you're committed, you have conviction, and that this is something that you're absolutely going to put everything that you have into it to make it happen.
You're kind of saying you guys are dedicating yourselves to winning Olympic gold medals, and it's not going to be in a few weeks. It's going to take years of true dedication and hard training and hard work, and better get stuff done, guys.
Yeah, this is the Olympics of the Olympics. This is.
Yes, I relate. Having been down that journey for years now, often when I see these sports players and greats, I'm a fan of sailing, and when I see these racers and their teams make it around the world in 90 days, I'm awed at how much dedication there is, years and years of dedication to get to that level. So entrepreneurship is the same. Listen, thank you very much, everyone. You were a great panel, great audience, and it's been a real pleasure to hold this event today. And thanks, Pei, thanks, Luc, thanks, Patrick, for joining us. And all of you out there, the startups, I'm looking forward to meeting you. The networking session is at 3 o'clock. I think Ghislaine is about to guide us there. Ghislaine, can I hand this over to you? And thank you, everyone, again.
Yes, Xavier, thank you very much. And what an interesting panel. Now, let's move forward to the final part of it, which is the networking session. To all startups, I want to reiterate before we go to the networking session that we are here to help. We have programs, we have objectives-based coaching, we have facilities which are state-of-the-art labs and co-working space. We have access to funding and also to a vast international network of investors and partners to help you along the journey. So really, we would like to welcome you to our community. Please reach us out at info@district3.com. So I will repeat, info@district3.co. Sign up for our newsletter at district3.co, district3.co, which is our website, and also follow us on our social platforms. And the name for it is District 3 Innovation. So before you leave, I encourage you all to join the networking session for the last segment of the Bioinnovation Conference. Click on the networking on the left side of your screen, and then you will be able to join the 3-minute chats. So it was really, really a pleasure to be here. I hope you have enjoyed it a lot and you stay with us for this final run in the networking session. So see you there and stay in touch with us. Thank you very much.